loves to help the team win, and yesterday it was grabbing pretty good, so we took him out of the game, make sure it wouldn't get worse. But man, you gotta respect the heck out of the fact that he wants to play regardless of how he feels.
Or so, if you could give them a mulligan, the team that signed that respective player, they would say we would not do that again. We would have rather not signed that player, amnesty the contract, let's start fresh again. Here's what he had to say when he was breaking down the Willson Contreras deal here in St. Louis. Joel Sherman talking about Willson Contreras.
So for 20 years, they won one way, which was to prioritize defense behind home plate. And then they went a completely different way a month into the season. You want another post headline? Catcher who never was thought of as great defensively concerns Cardinals defensively. Willson Contreras.
Guys, help me.
Willson Contreras had exactly the season you would expect him. Willson Contreras had an A season compared to his history. It looks just like last year's season. He is exactly who the Cardinals should have expected him to be. But who did the Cardinals expect him to be? They turned on this guy, some of their pitchers early in the season, that he wasn't Yadier Molina. Duh! I could have told you that before you wrote the first check.
He's right.
Willson told you that
said
at the press conference.
Alex, when you look offensively, what he did compared to Sean Murphy, who was the other option that the Cardinals considered in the offseason via trade, they were pretty damn similar. Basically, offensively, the exact same dude. Now, difference is Sean Murphy is also a borderline Gold Glove defender behind the play. So you get a really good defender and a really good offensive player with Sean Murphy. But what you would not have at this point, at least according to the reports of the asking price, Brendan Donovan or Lars Nootbaar. Those two guys would not be a part of this roster for 2023 or beyond because you would have had to trade them to be able to acquire the services of Sean Murphy. So when you look back, Alex, almost 1 year ago now, did the Cardinals get it right in going after Willson Contreras and giving him the money instead of trading the talent of Donovan and Nootbaar for Sean Murphy?
Absolutely. You just asked this to the president of the Willson Contreras fan club. You should talk about his hater over here, Tanner Hendrickson. Wow. That's the one that should be asked this question. But yeah, when you're looking at what next year is supposed to be for the Cardinals, Brendan Donovan and Lars Nootbaar are pillars for that team. If not, we're talking about you potentially not having two outfielders, depending on where Brendan Donovan's playing on this team, one for sure, and you're talking about two on-base guys and left-handed bats for a catcher. And look, I love what Sean Murphy has done. Sean Murphy is an incredible player. But Willson Contreras just proved his worth. If you were to look at the first half Willson Contreras and second half Willson Contreras, take the name out of it, just give fans the stats, people would jump on Willson Contreras' second half because his offense backed it up. I don't care that the dude is bad behind the plate. Frankly, yeah, you needed to improve a little bit, but you've got your backup catcher if certain pitchers can't work well with Willson Contreras. He managed his way through the BS that he had at the beginning of the season, and it really wasn't the team throwing him under the bus. It was a couple of guys that threw him under the bus. So, yeah, you made the right call here. It would have been great to have what Sean Murphy has produced in Atlanta, but let's be frank about this. I don't know if Sean Murphy does that in St. Louis because you don't have the pitchers that Atlanta has. Whereas Willson Contreras managed through what he did with those pitchers. He managed the pressure of coming to St. Louis, and now he is one of the hottest bats in all of baseball to end the season.
Yeah, and I think you said it perfectly. I think he is Brendan Donovan and Lars Nootbaar pillars for this team in 2024. So looking at moving them, and then you have Sean Murphy just in their place, he's not Lars Nootbaar or Brendan Donovan. He's not on-base machines like those guys are. He doesn't have the versatility of a Brendan Donovan. You need those guys here in St. Louis for the 2025 season. So, yeah, they got it right with Willson Contreras. Now, yes, I was more of a quote-unquote hater early on in the year, and that's because he's bad defensively. Contreras still that same bad defensive catcher behind home plate. But if his offense isn't making up for it, that's when you notice it. Now you don't notice it as much. Why? Because he got super hot behind home plate, and he finished out the season strong. So if you're going to get this every year, and this is what the Cardinals signed, and they should have known that going into the season, then yeah, you can get away with a quote-unquote bad defensive catcher behind home plate. You can improve his framing in the offseason. Like, I don't doubt that they can help work on that and make him better there. Blocking, I'm not sure there's going to be much they can do for him. But if his bat plays like this, he's that third impact bat that the Cardinals were searching for this offseason, so they got it right.
Say it with us, BK. MV3, MV3, MV3.
You're talking about Contreras, Walker, and Gorman?
Wow.
You just throw
You're
Paul
right.
Goldschmidt
Hey,
on
he's
our
right. MV6.
MV6, MV9, MV9.
Wow.
Donovan, Newbar, Gorman, MV9, MV.
No offense to Wynn, he's not going to get there.
Well,
This
he's Gold
offense can
Glove.
be really good again next year, boys.
2004-esque.
Now, 2013-esque. It's got the depth of what they had in 2013. I think that's what they were trying to construct this year. It just never really got to that place. They were so behind the eight ball offensively early in the season. I think they were all pressing because they knew, hey, if we don't score 14 runs in this game, we've got no chance to win because how terrible the pitching was early on. They were pressing, the season snowballed on them, and we all know the story from there. In the second half of the season, to your point, though, T-Bone, the guy hit, in terms of Willson Contreras, .310 with an on-base percentage above 400 and an OPS of 960. That's not just good for a catcher. That would be one of the best hitters in all of Major League Baseball, and he did that over the course of 45 games. I couldn't have been more impressed with the way that he finished out this season because just those are the offensive numbers. I think defensively he got a little better. I don't think he's ever going to be anything more than an average defender behind the plate, and I think that's okay if he's hitting like this. But the biggest thing that he did is it felt like he started to become himself again. He embraced what it meant to be a Cardinal. I thought it was really cool the way that he approached Adam Wainwright's 200th win. I think you've seen him kind of just settle into who he is, both in terms of his personality and also in terms of who he is as a player. And it became almost I'm not a great defender, guys. Like, I've never been one, and I'm probably not going to be one. But I'm going to work. I'm going to put in the work that you guys are asking me to. And if that gets me closer to average, great. But you guys signed me to be a hitter, and I'm going to go out there and show you that I can still be a hitter. And if he can continue to be that for this Cardinals team, I think you are absolutely correct, Alex. I think they ended up getting it right. And I think they're going to have to make a very similar decision this offseason. And this is why I wanted to bring it up today, partly because Contreras is now almost assuredly done for the season. And also because, man, the Cardinals are going to be in a similar spot with the pitching this time around. Last year they had to make a choice. Do we probably overpay for a 30-year-old catcher that's not very good defensively? Or do we go out there and get the guy that does everything we want him to behind the plate? But, man, it's going to cost us. Like, whether you... There's been different reports on exactly who the players were that were involved, but some combination of, like, Newbar, Donovan, Gorman seemed to be the consensus, right? Two of those three guys that were likely heading in the other direction. Do we do that? And they decided, you know what, let's just spend the money. Let's spend the money. Let's keep this offense because we think this offense has the potential to be special, and if we pull pieces out of it, could be the Jenga board that falls over as a result. I think they should do the same thing this offseason. Make the same decision that you did with Willson Contreras, but on the pitching side of things. Go out there and spend the money. And if that means, much like Contreras, losing a draft pick as a result, so be it. It's worth it. Because this offense can carry you next year, but you need the pitching to go along with it. And the best way, in my mind, to go acquire it is by spending the crap out of your payroll going into this offseason.
And that puts Mo and his staff
and the ownership group.
It puts them in the spotlight. Don't wait this offseason. You can't sit around and wait to see if the market comes down. You're going to have to pounce. If you're addressing this as we need to get a 1 and 2 for our rotation, well, guess what? As soon as that free agency opens, you need to be talking and you need to be setting it and you need to get the pitcher. Because what happens is you wait for the market to come down a little bit. Maybe you can get Aaron Nola a couple $1 million less, or maybe Yamamoto a couple $1 million less. Those guys sign elsewhere. Now you are forced to go into a trade because there's nothing else out there. You can't wait anymore. When Nola hits, when Snell hits, when Yamamoto hits, whenever this opens, Mo and his staff need to have their plan in place so it says, here you go, our best offer. We'd like to know as soon as possible.
How would you guys feel if they ended up with, like, Aaron Nola and Imanaga as their two guys?
I'd call that a success.
I think that's a good offseason. I think they still need to bring in a third starter.
Wade Miley.
Oh, yeah. Oh, man.
Because Wade Miley's going to get like nothing, right? Yesterday we talked about this and we kind of went through like, hey, what do you spend $10 million here? Do you get there? What if you get a $5 million star?
You mispronounced Luis Severino.
Yeah, whoever that guy is, right? The one that's going to – I think you get an old washed – like Rich Hill. Would you be in on Rich Hill as that third starter? I'm actually kind of serious.
No, because I saw how age kind of affects the 40-year-olds this year.
Not great when you're relying on it.
I'm in on Zach Thompson, so I really don't care who that third name is. Like, bring in a third guy that can start. Cool. Fine by me. Don't give them a bunch of money. Don't do anything crazy there. Spend your money on the top two guys that can be in front of a guy like Miles Mikolas.
That's
in this
when
rotation.
you wait.
That's what you're spending.
The third guy is the one you wait until spring training is like 2 weeks away, and a guy still doesn't have a job.
Yeah, the musical chairs game where there's no chairs remaining. You're like, hey,
we brought a chair for you.
Wade Miley. My name's John Mozeliak, and I have a chair for you to sit in. It's not a very nice chair.
When a guy
is going to feel good, but it's $2 million worth of a chair.
When a guy is at home sitting with his wife and family deciding if they want to go play in Japan or Korea or play in AA, that's when you call that individual and say, hey, what about St. Louis?
Somebody on the text line, I think, has my ideal offseason. Guys, sign Yamamoto, sign Sonny Gray, go get Wade Miley, and then just be done with it. That is... Do you know how thrilled I would be if they had that offseason? Yamamoto as your front-end starter. He's 25 years old. Yeah, you're going to have to pay way more than you want to for him. So be it. Go pay the money so you don't have to trade the assets. Sign Sonny Gray, who has been the second best pitcher, arguably, in the American League this year. And then go get some dude that can start 15 games for you next year if you need him to by filling in for Zach Thompson or whoever ends up getting hurt. I think that would be an ideal offseason for the Cardinals. Michael Wacha, somebody brings up him. Sure. Like one of those types of guys that can
I've gone down the former Cardinal path. I don't want to do that again.
Sean Manaea, I've brought his name up in the past. He can start. He can be out of the bullpen. Like that fluidity, I think it would be good for the Cardinals as well.
Yeah, and that's the route that I would go to. And I think to the point of, they're going to have to choose between sign these starters or go trade some offensive pieces away. It's just going to come down to, is ownership willing to do what's necessary to kind of build this thing around? I said this yesterday. I said, I would go sign a third starter that's going to be like $10 million. And you said, well, you've run out of money. And I said, well, then ownership's going to have to buck up a little bit more because it almost needs to be a blank check off season for John Mozeliak. Otherwise, he's going to have to do exactly that. He's going to have to probably go both routes. If there is and I know there's going to be a budget, but if it's like, hey, 50 mil, no more, no less. You just got to stick in that range. Mo may have to do both. He may have to sign a starting pitcher, and he may have to trade for a starting pitcher and then pull from that Jenga piece and just hope it doesn't topple over.
The lesson learned last year, if they go this route, one thing that I do find really interesting about the Willson Contreras thing, the lesson learned last year was it's okay to go completely opposite of what you've known. Because you had a fully defense-first catcher for 15 years, right, with Yadier Molina. And they said, you know what, we've got a real opportunity here. It's kind of change the look of our lineup. And Willson Contreras is the guy that allows us to do that. The lesson, if you're going to pull that from the catching situation over to the rotation, the lesson to be learned would be we had no swing and miss. We're going to completely overcorrect here. There's one guy on the market that actually does fit into that criteria, and it would be Blake Snell. I don't know that they'll do it. I frankly wouldn't do it. But if there is one lesson from last year that could be applied this offseason, it would be that the guy to go target is actually Blake Snell. I'll be interested to see if that's something that they go through in their head as well. Coming up in about 15 minutes or so, we'll give you our weekend look ahead in the NFL, the upset pick that we're going with going into this weekend. And if you could only sit in front of your TV on Sunday and have one game on the screen, what are you paying attention to?
Cardinals, Padres.
We'll get into that coming up in 15 minutes. But next, Alex is having a fever dream out here at Centene Community Ice Center. The fourth line, T-Bone, it actually might get more playing time this year than what we've seen in the past. We'll talk about it next here on 101 ESPN. Alongside Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. You've got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Hey, we're broadcasting live from the E&B Granite Studios out at the Centene Community Ice Center, where the Blues continue with training camp ahead of the 2023 NHL season. And Alex, I know you are excited about what we're watching out there because the Blues are on the ice, and you've been giving me updates about a whole lot of players that are expected to be on this year's fourth line, or at least that are competing for this year's fourth line. One of those players is Nick Ritchie, who came in on a PTO. You know, I've been calling for this guy for 3 years now. He got put on waivers by the Boston Bruins in like 2021, and I said, Alex, this is a guy that we need to talk about. And then, unfortunately, we didn't get to him during the show because that was the same day that Brandon Saad ended up signing here in St. Louis. So our audience doesn't know.
Somebody say the better version of Nick Ritchie.
I have long been a Nick Ritchie fan. Craig Berube sure sounds like he's a Nick Ritchie fan as well. Here's what he told Bally Sports Midwest yesterday.
Like, he's a big guy. He's played in the NHL. He's played, you know, that role in the fourth line, third line maybe. He's put some pucks in the net. You know, he's had, you know, a couple good years scoring some goals. He's a big body that has good hands around the net. I like his size, obviously, and his, you know, again, he's got experience. You know, he's got to be a big body. He's got to use his big body. You know, get on the forward check, control things down low in the offensive zone, get to the net offensively, you know, just be a heavy guy, you know, make it hard in the other team, and then just be responsible defensively.
What you just heard Craig Berube say is what he has been calling for the last couple of years. Somebody to be a big body and go to the front of the net and park himself there. I said it yesterday. Tanner and I were watching the opening of training camp, and off of a rush drill, Nick Ritchie skates up the ice, a lackadaisical shot on net, which hit the net, by the way. That's a point to take into consideration. And then my dude just turns around and plants himself right in front of the eyes of Malcolm Subban. And it's desperation for this Blues team to get big bodies. You need to create space in front of the net. It's what Pat Maroon was so good at. It's what David Backes was so good at. Frankly, it's how Keith Tkachuk made that Hall of Fame career. You don't have it, and Nick Ritchie is going to provide that. Now, the question is going to be, does Nick Ritchie out-compete the 7 to 15 forwards that Doug Armstrong talked about yesterday? And that's the part that remains to be seen. I think Nick Ritchie already has an advantage over all of these players because when you go to the list of guys like Mackenzie McEachran or Nikita Alexandrov or Nathan Walker, those guys aren't power forwards. Those guys play rush. Those guys take shots. Nick Ritchie is the only power forward in that group. So he's got an upper hand, but you have to showcase it. I compare this really to what James Neal was that year that they brought him in on a PTO. James Neal had no chance of making that team. James Neal in the first 2 preseason games scored 3 goals. James Neal made the team that season. Now, it didn't last long, but he played the power forward style. So Nick Ritchie's going to do that. You have a luxury of depth right now on the fourth line. If Nick Ritchie becomes an extra forward to play and compete with Sonny and Blais and Neighbors and Toropchenko and then a couple of guys in the minors, Zach Dean made a nice play, Matt DeFranks just tweeted out, we're talking about a line that is going to earn the responsibility from Craig Berube to play late in games. We're talking about a line that is going to be used as much as they used to use the line in 2019.
I think that what you're watching right now with what the Blues are creating with their fourth line is the reverse of the identity from a year ago. One of the things that this team did really poorly was creating opportunities in front of the net, Alex. I've got the numbers to back this up because you know I got into my spreadsheets.
Of course you do.
Typing up a bunch of stuff and trying to find out, all right, what went wrong for this team last year? Alex, I've got some numbers for you.
Okay.
The Blues last year in terms of rebound shots for. So they create a rebound opportunity and boom, we're going to whack that bad boy right back into the net, right?
Whack it.
Last in the NHL. They had 131 of them.
Oh, well, that's not good. No bueno.
For context, number 1 in the league last year was Carolina. We all agree pretty good hockey team, right? During the regular season at least.
Didn't make it very far in the playoffs, did they?
294.
God damn.
The Blues had 131 rebound shots. Carolina had 294. The Blues, again, for context, allowed 215. So they allowed 85 more rebound shots than they created last year. You know who was number 1 in the NHL in the postseason last year in terms of rebound shots created?
That would be the golden boy, Matthew Tkachuk.
Nope, that would be our friend, Sonny Oskar Sundqvist.
I was going to say, if you say Nick Ritchie, I'm going to laugh at you because he wasn't in the playoffs last year.
Nope. I think what they are creating right now is a fourth line that is going to head to the front of the net and park themselves there and just say, you know what, we're good right here. And if you have guys like Nick Ritchie, Sammy Blais, Oskar Sundqvist, Toropchenko, Jake Neighbors potentially, all filtering through that fourth line, dude, you can play that line 12 or 13 minutes a night and you feel good about it. Like, it's not one of those things where you're like, third period, we got about 10 minutes to go. Can we send these boys out there? No, you're like, hey, third period, 10 minutes to go, get out there. Let's see what you guys can do. It can create a little bit of an identity, and it does get back to what you were talking about with 2019. It's what they've been missing ever since, and it's time that they finally are able to recreate it.
I always go back to that year, and I think it was 2-3 years ago, where Dakota Joshua was that centerman on that fourth line. And Craig Berube, I mean, that line would play 4 or 5 minutes a night. And Craig Berube would be asked afterwards why he wouldn't use them. And I think Klim Kostin was on it as well, and he said, because they haven't earned the trust from the coaching staff yet in certain situations. They're unpredictable.
Yep.
You don't have that unpredictability this season, with or without Nick Ritchie. Nick Ritchie's a veteran. Nick Ritchie, what I love about him is he shoots the puck. Like, my guy, he'll get 4, 5, 6 shots on goal if he's going to play 8 minutes a night, because when he goes out there, he knows what his duties are. But if he's in the lineup, if he's not in the lineup, we're talking about 6 guys that could be Toropchenko, Sonny, Blais, Neighbors, Nick Ritchie, McEachran, Walker, Alexandrov. Like, all of these guys have earned the responsibility in the NHL and the trust from Craig Berube to not put their team in a bad spot. And that's what you need on a fourth line, especially when you're running your top line. If you're down by a goal, you can't keep running that first and second line out there so much because they get gassed. Or if you're in the penalty box a lot, you've got to have 4 lines to be able to preserve the energy from your top guys so you can use them late. That's what this line is going to provide.
And, we talked, I can't remember, I think it was Wednesday when we were out here, the Blues trying to get back to what they were in 2021. I think one thing they can get back to in 2019 with this team, because we said you can't just build the team like 2019. That was kind of a one-off for the St. Louis Blues, is that had an identity line. And I think Craig Berube really wants to get back to having an identity line. And I think because of what you said, you know what you're going to get from this fourth line. You know that what Nick Ritchie's going to do. You can trust Oskar Sundqvist. You can trust a Jake Neighbors if he's going to be on that fourth line. That is one thing that I think that they are trying to pull back from that 2019 team of, we got to have a line that we know is going to go out there, throw the body around, park themselves in front of the net, and we can trust them to play rather than, like you said, a couple of years ago, that fourth line was getting 4 minutes, or, hell, they weren't even playing 3 forwards on the fourth line.
Yeah.
They would carry an extra defenseman because they didn't trust that fourth line enough. And I think that's the one thing they're trying to pull back from that 2019 team is, okay, we can't build like that 2019 team was, but we can build an identity line that they used a lot in that playoff run.
That's a good point. You know how many times last year we talked about 11-7 and acted like 11-7 was the magic sauce for this team to win hockey games? You can't do that anymore. You can't. The best case scenario for this Blues team is a couple of defensemen step up and make the others replaceable in terms of you can move them around so that you can carry 14 forwards. Because if you go 13-8 again with your roster, that's going to hurt you because there's going to be injuries.
So, Alex, I'm going to ask you this question. Jesper Fast, pretty good player.
Mm-hmm.
Paul Stastny, a helpful fourth liner last year with Carolina.
Yeah, I would say so.
Those guys were among the top 10 last year in terms of rebound shots, expected goals.
Yeah.
And that is a big reason why Carolina was at the top of this list that I was just talking about in terms of rebound shots. Oskar Sundqvist was right up there with those players. I don't think we can overstate the importance of Oskar Sundqvist being a part of this team. Now, this is a lot to place on a guy that has not been healthy very much over the last few seasons since being traded here from St. Louis. But if this guy can help you in 60 games, if he can successfully play in 60 games this year, and you get Nick Ritchie, who's a big body to put in front of the net, and Toropchenko, instead of being more, I feel like last year he was a guy that almost won off of the rush, strangely enough. Like, he would take that big body, go wide, and then just drive straight at the net. There's value in that. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to take that away from his game. But at 5-on-5, if you're able to play a little more of that cycle game with this fourth line, I do think he is somebody that can succeed by just placing himself in front of the net. I think that is exactly the kind of thing that this team has been missing. It has been way too long since we've seen it from them. And it takes a little bit of pressure in some of those more physical games away from that top line. It takes a little bit of pressure away from a guy like Kevin Hayes as well on that third line. So when you're able to put them out there 12, 13 minutes a night, it's like having a number 5 starter that can be an innings eater for you. And now suddenly it alleviates a lot of that. We can all kind of take a deep breath.
And frankly, I think it's going to benefit this team to have a fourth line that is punishing to play against also. And all 3 of those guys will do that. And add in Sammy Blais if he's playing on that, Jake Neighbors. Guys that will finish their checks. Because the one thing that this team didn't have last year was a group of players that could punish the other side that made it difficult to make it through 60 minutes. And that's what I hope that this team is going to take on as an identity for this upcoming season.
They've got a lot of options. We'll see what it ends up looking like, especially as we go through the preseason, what the line combinations kind of look like. But they've got like 5 guys that are really potentially going to be a part of that fourth line mix. One of the guys that we are not one of the players that we think will make this roster is going to either be sent down to the AHL or be moved on either via waivers or sent somewhere else via trade. We'll get more into that conversation coming up later on this afternoon. With Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. We've got Grant Francis doing a great job with us back in the studio. We are broadcasting live from the E&B Granite Studios at the Centene Community Ice Center, hoping to be joined by a Blues player later on this afternoon as well. Coming up next, our NFL weekend look ahead. What's the matchup you're most looking forward to watching this weekend? And if you had to pick one upset special going into the weekend, who you got? We'll tell you next here on 101 ESPN.
Grant Francis here with a SportsCenter update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Cardinals lost again last night to the Brewers 6-0. They got shut out at Busch Stadium. They will be on the road today as they head to San Diego to take on the Padres and start their series out west. Dakota Hudson will be on the mound for the Cardinals. The righty Matt Waldron for the Padres, who's 1-3 this season with a 5.16 ERA. First pitch will be at 8:40. We'll have some baseball coverage tonight here on 101 ESPN for you. Rangers and Mariners, you can hear that pregame starting at 6:30. Tomorrow night for St. Louis City SC, they'll be in Minnesota to take on Minnesota United, who has lost back-to-back matches and they're winless in their last 4. Minnesota is 10th in the Western Conference with 37 points. Kickoff will be at 7:30. And then college football over the weekend, Mizzou will be here in St. Louis at the Dome to take on Memphis, looking to improve to 4-0. That one will start at 6:30. Illinois will start at 2:30 as they host Florida Atlantic. I'm Grant Francis. The SportsCenter update's been driven by Johnny Londoff. Find new roads and shop 24/7 at londoff.com and londoffautoplex.com. Are you kidding me?
With Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. You've got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. We are broadcasting live at the E&B Granite Studios out of the Centene Community Ice Center, and we're calling an audible because anytime that you've got Kevin Hayes available to you here in the studio, you're happy to be joined by the newest Blues forward coming over this offseason in the trade from Philadelphia. Kevin, we appreciate it, man. How you doing today?
Doing well. Just got done with day 2. Tough loss for Team White. We'll put it behind us.
I heard you had a breakaway out there, though, so that's a good start for training camp, right?
Yeah, it's a good start for training camp. The first 2 days are always fun. A lot of energy, a lot of emotion. Everyone's so excited to be back.
Doug Armstrong mentioned yesterday, Kevin, that the first couple of days for the young guys that are trying to make an impression, this is like Game 7 of the Stanley Cup for them, and for some of you guys, it's day 1 and 2 of training camp. What is that like as you're on the ice?
No, it's fun. Every training camp is fun. It's hard, but fun. You see the young kids, it brings you back to your first training camps, how nervous you were, and you didn't know where you stood. You didn't know what the team wanted from you, but going into year 10 or 11, it's pretty standard now. It's a lot of fun. On a new team, so it is my first training camp in St. Louis,
Sure.
so I'm looking at it that way.
Do you remember those drives into those training camps when you were a rookie of thinking like, oh, geez, I got to go in here and sit in a room? And, I mean, you were on some really established teams in the first couple of years with the New York Rangers.
Oh, yeah. I remember my first camp, I didn't even park in the parking lot because I didn't want to take anyone's spot. So I walked in the front door.
Carrying your hockey bag with you?
I walked in the front door, and they were like, I think you're in the wrong entrance. And I'm like, just send me to the locker room. But no, it's fun to see the young kids be so excited. And the older guys, I know, like everyone's been talking about, the season didn't go as well as they wanted to last year, and they seem revamped and ready to go, and a lot of guys got here early, so it's a good mix right now.
Did you have a veteran that kind of took you under his wing whenever you first got into the league out of New York?
Yeah, I was super lucky. I had guys like Rick Nash, Mark Stahl, Marty St. Louis, and then Keith Yandel got traded at the deadline my first year, so I learned how to be a pro pretty quickly.
Well, and talking about being a pro, the first thing, Kevin, when we found out, because we were at the draft when we found out that the Blues acquired you, I'll never forget, it was a text that I had with JR, and I was just like, hey, give me some nuggets on Kevin Hayes. He goes, well, he's related to Keith Tkachuk. And I'm like, man, that's great when the first thing somebody says about a hockey player that they acquire is, oh, he's related to Keith Tkachuk. You talk about winning a city. That's how.
Yeah, no, Big Walt has been he's been treating me like gold. First couple of days here, I spent pretty much every hour in St. Louis with the Tkachuk brothers, Chantel and Keith, and they showed me the ropes, took me golfing, good restaurants, places to go. So he's going to be leaned on a lot this year.
What's the adjustment been like for you? I know anytime you move to a new city, it can be different, especially when you're going from a coast to a Midwest city like St. Louis. What's that been like both for you and for the family to move out here?
Yeah, no, it's definitely different. I've lived in a major city pretty much my whole life, Boston, New York, Philadelphia, quick stint in Winnipeg. But, yeah, it's suburban life's a little bit slower for sure. We like it so far. We just got married, so it's nice to kind of early nights, early to bed. So it's been easy. My family's excited to come out, see the Kachucks, so it'll be a great year.
You played against St. Louis, obviously, in that playoff series when you were with Winnipeg. You've played against them plenty of times. What did you know about not just the team but the city itself from your other places that you played?
Yeah, honestly, I didn't know much because I've pretty much been in the East my whole career.
Yeah.
So we only come here once a year. It's usually on a back-to-back.
Usually middle of winter, too, where you can't do anything.
Yeah, exactly. Stay in the hotel. But no, it's I kind of like the speed here, to be honest. It's a lot slower, a lot more time on your hands, a lot more relaxing. So
Less traffic.
Less traffic.
It's taking
less
an hour to
people
get to the
yelling.
rink.
Yeah, exactly. A lot less
Highway life is a little different here than Philadelphia or New York, right?
A lot less car beeps. Yeah.
So we got Kevin Hayes with us here on 101 ESPN, New Blues Forward. So let's talk a little bit about the hockey side of things. You're getting adjusted to everything, first couple of days of training camp. What's been your early impression of Craig Berube, the head coach?
He is very honest, tough. You know exactly where you stand, exactly what he wants, what system he wants to play. And it seems like if you don't buy into what he's preaching, you're not going to play. So I think that's good in the coach, to be honest. Torts was the same way last year. So it's nice for the players to know where they stand and what they need to do in order to succeed. And I think he does a great job of that.
How beneficial is that throughout a grueling season? You mentioned Torts was like that. You had Alain Vigneault with New York as well. He seems to be one of those blunt coaches through a long season. How important is that for a roster to have a coach like that?
Yeah, it's huge for a team. You always want to know where you stand. You want to be consistent, right? I know when I entered the league, Keith Tkachuk told me the biggest piece of advice he's ever told me was to be consistent and let your teammates, let your coaches, let your management know what they're going to get every day, and I try to do that.
Well, we're talking to Kevin Hayes for just another couple of minutes here. Kevin, when you look at where the game is now compared to where it was, for example, when Keith Tkachuk was playing, it's changed quite a lot. Do you prefer this style of game? Do you wish that you could go back a little bit to what it was, in the mid-'90s where there was some more physicality? How do you feel like – what is your impression of where the game is today?
I think the game's at a great spot. Some of the kids are too fast, but no, I think I blend well with this game, kind of a bigger body. It's not as many penalties as there used to be, grappling and holding, but no, it's fun to see these young kids, see how fast they are, see how in shape they are, and if you're not in shape come training camp, you're going to get exposed pretty quickly, so it's kind of nice.
How long does it take to get some chemistry with line mates? Coming to a new team, that's one thing, but also learning your teammates, learning the guys that you're going to be aligned with. How long does that take?
I think a few of the hardest things coming to a new team is blending in the locker room and building chemistry with players. Some of these guys have been playing together for a long time. As a new guy, you just try to come in, have a lot of conversation. If a play doesn't go right, you just go back to the bench and say, hey, what do you think happened there? And that's how you build chemistry, be a good guy, and try to learn your line mates.
Speaking of that size, Kevin, I am curious because on the defensive side of the game now, you're seeing smaller, faster defensemen than what it used to be where it was 6'8" guys standing in front of the net, cross-checking you away. Somebody who's made a career of being in front of the net, has that changed at all for your style of knowing that they're a little bit smaller, but they're faster on the defensive side?
Yeah, for sure. You definitely have a little bit of an advantage in front of the net, but some of these young, smaller defensemen are so fast. So you got to be ready to get back. Your first three steps, your first three steps are a lot more important now than they were.
Yeah. Final one I wanted to ask BK, hockey-wise. Knowing some of the guys on this team, you've mentioned before we went on the air, you played with Torrey Krug growing up, you've played with Justin Falk. How impactful is that for a player like you who's been in the league long enough, but you come in already established relationships with some of those leaders? Yeah,
that's huge. Like I said, it's hard going to a new team. It's never easy. But when you know guys on a personal level, it makes it a lot easier. They tell the guys kind of who I am and what I'm like. I think of myself as a personable person, so I fit into a lot of locker rooms, but it makes my life a lot easier when you enter a locker room and you can have a real conversation right away from day one. So,
who's the best chirper so far out there on the ice
other
that you've
than you?
Noticed?
The best chirper will probably go to Bertuzzo.
Okay. Is Bucci giving anything to you yet now that you're back reunited with him?
No, I'm excited to be back with Bucci, though. It's fun to see how he was as a rookie to what he is now, how his game's evolved into kind of purely offense when I played with him in New York, and now he's a really good 200-foot player that's on the PK. It's kind of amazing.
Did you know that personality was there when you first played with him?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
He came in, he was great. His English is a lot better now.
Yeah.
Too. It's a lot easier.
Does it surprise you at all how good he's become defensively? I mean, he's one of the better two-way forwards now in the league. And we look at, I've said on the air, the way that he approaches the penalty kill, it's almost like he sees it as a power play opportunity.
Yeah, for
him.
sure. It's when you're that big of an offensive guy coming into the league, and then all of a sudden you buy into the D zone, you don't lose your offensive instinct. So
Sure.
I think it definitely helps him.
He's Kevin Hayes, going to have a great season this year for the St. Louis Blues. We're certainly excited to be able to watch you on a night-in, night-out basis. Kevin, thanks so much for the time, man.
Thanks, guys. It was a blast.
Appreciate it as always. It's Kevin Hayes joining us from day 2 out at Blues training camp. We're broadcasting live at the E&B Granite Studios out at the Centene Community Ice Center. Coming up next, we'll get to Ask Us Anything. 314-399-9646 here on 101 ESPN.
got questions, we may have the answers. Maybe. It's BK and Ferrario's Questions and Answers on 101 ESPN.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for Ask Us Anything. Jamie Rivers making a quick side swipe here on the show. Let's get to the text line, 314-399-9646. We're hoping to be joined, by the way, by Robert Bortuzzo coming up here in just a little bit. This is always a good question to get. From the 636, BK, did you succeed at anything in life before you got into talk radio?
Wow, that was brutal for Ask Us Anything.
Fair question. I mean, did you?
No, not really.
Well, hold on. You succeeded in relationship. I mean, you're happily married to a beautiful woman, and now you got a beautiful baby boy.
You know what? When you say that is
I'd call
true.
that a win because sometimes it's not that easy.
I'm still searching for that, you know?
Very true.
To be honest, though, like I didn't really do anything prior to talk radio. Like this is the only job I've ever really had. Any career I've ever had. I was a server. I guess I could technically say that I was successful in that because I made perfectly fine money.
I've heard you weren't very good at that, though. Not a great customer service. People I've talked to that went to your restaurant said you used to have a tone.
Probably had I would totally
That's
believe
true.
that.
Really? Medium well is what you want your steak? Okay.
A lot of what I do at restaurants, we talked the other day about how I don't send food back. A lot of that is informed by my time as a server. What I did not enjoy, that is what I do not do at this point in time. All right, let's get to a question from the 314 on last night's game. Guys, I'm convinced Brock Purdy is one of the top 12 quarterbacks in the NFL, and the only reason we don't treat him as such is because he was a 7th round draft pick. What do you think about Brock Purdy? Where does he rank for you?
I don't know if I'd have him there yet, but I think he will get there. I put more respect on Kyle Shanahan for what Brock Purdy's doing than just Brock Purdy.
I saw this. Somebody said this the other day. I'm curious your thoughts on this, since you mentioned it, Alex. How many quarterbacks would you take to start your team over Kyle Shanahan? So, like, you have a choice. You can either start your team with a quarterback or you get Kyle Shanahan. How far down that quarterback list do you get before you say, you know what, I'd rather have Kyle Shanahan than any other quarterback in the league? Is it like 6, 5?
Well, Mahomes, Allen, Burrow, Herbert, Jackson.
Is that it?
Probably. Because after I get to that, I'm probably starting to be like,
because at that point, I feel like I can get the 25th best quarterback in the NFL.
Oh, yeah.
Like, where does Jimmy rank? Like 20th, 24th, something like that?
Yeah.
yeah, especially
And he
this
took
year.
him to a Super Bowl.
I look at this and say, if you put any of the 3 top quarterbacks that were drafted, Young, Stroud, Richardson, with that 49ers team, we're talking about him being the top 5 quarterback in the NFL. Like, it's just because of the offense that they've put together, and it's for how great Kyle Shanahan truly is. So I like Brock Purdy, but I think a lot of this is because of who he plays for.
From the 636, guys, do you see the Blues as a potential 90-point team this season?
Yeah, 92 to 95 is kind of my range. NHL Network, Stu Grimson, and there was one other analyst that were on yesterday talking about it, and they said the same thing. 90 to 95 points is what you see from the Blues this year, and that's where I'm at.
Potentially, yes. I don't think they're a 90-point team right now. I think they're short of that. I think they're about 85. But I can see the potential. Like, if that's how the question was framed, I can see where they can. If Ron ends up having a really good year, if you end up having Captain playing really well, and you end up with the potential 920 goal scores that we've talked about, 8 of them potentially, then yeah, I can see how they get to 90 points. But I'm a little of a skepticist, so I say they're just a little bit short of that.
I am going to say that is exactly where they end up. Somewhere in that range feels about right to me. From the 314, guys, if you could watch one college football game that is not a local team this weekend, so no Mizzou, no Illinois, who are you watching?
Colorado, Oregon. I'm just all on board with Colorado right now. Now that it's also a 21-point spread, I'm so in on that one because Colorado's going to keep that close.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
No Travis Hunter.
Don't care.
I like Oregon minus the points.
Well, welcome to you losing one of your bets.
Pick that in the.
Is that number 3 for you?
No, but it is something that I considered going into the weekend. I think we're overestimating Colorado at this point in time. I think they're a really good team. I do not think that they're going to be able to keep that one
you're going to eat those
close.
words on Monday.
Yeah. Another game for me, I don't want to just take the one that's primetime, Ohio State, Notre Dame. That game's going to be great. Oregon State, Washington State's going to be a lot of fun. That game is going to be, you've got DJ Uiagalelei playing really well for Oregon State. They run the ball really well, and Washington State's been kind of a surprise out of the Pac-12. So I'm kind of excited to see what that game looks like. Let's just be honest. You pick a Pac-12 game, you're going to end up with a great football game.
What does it say that all of us are excited about the Pac-12 this weekend?
Love Oregon State in that one, by the way.
All right, let's go.
All right, Washington State, ladies and gentlemen.
WSU +3.
Ohio State at Notre Dame, and you guys didn't mention it. That is how great of a college football season we are entering right now. Like, think about that. If I had told you before the year, hey, there's going to be 2 games that you find to be as intriguing or more intriguing than Ohio State versus Notre Dame, 2 top 10 teams in week 3 of the college football season. Dude, it is such a great college football season that we are entering.
Man, pump your brakes.
I read an article
I think it's
today.
the best that we've seen in 15 years.
I think you're right. I read an article today that was saying there's a chance before we get to October, you could have both Ohio State, Alabama, and Clemson looking on the outside, if not eliminated from the college football playoff by the end of this weekend.
Yeah, I think it's very possible, and it's because there is more parity than there has been in a really long time, and that's what I like about it. I enjoy when we're not totally sure who's going to end up in the college football playoff because there's a bunch of teams that are really good. Dominant teams are good for college football. I think when you have too long of a period of time, though, with one team that is dominating, it becomes something that feels too repetitive. Like in the NBA, I think it became a little repetitive for some people when it was Golden State versus Cleveland/Miami every single season, right? Eventually, you want to see something that feels a little more new. You want to see something that is a little fresh. Alabama, Clemson, and Georgia have dominated the sport for a decade. It's time for something a little bit new. And this year, we're getting something new. And that's what I think is so enjoyable about what we're watching right now in the college side of things. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. Guys, if you could go anywhere and you could get an all-inclusive vacation, beach vacation, where would you want to go?
Only Illinois.
There's no beach there. I can promise you that.
Fly away with the squirrels.
Just fly away with the squirrels. I could be a white squirrel for a weekend. Katie and I have always wanted to go to Bora Bora.
Oh, hell yeah.
We're never going to be able to afford to go, but we've
Tahiti?
always wanted to go there. And then what's the, oh my God, what's it? It's like, Turks and Caicos. That's what it is. I was like, where's this? Capes or something? Not Cape Girardeau. I've been there. No, Turks and Caicos is another one that I've heard is incredible.
That's a good one.
I would want to go to I don't know, like a specific beach, but I would love to go to Costa Rica and do it somewhere.
Oh, sure.
I've always wanted to go to Costa Rica because ever since I watched a video on it in Spanish. I didn't pick up anything in Spanish class outside of I would love to go to Costa Rica. It might have been on PBS.
So it's a different kind of beach. It's like a Mediterranean area, but I would love to go to Greece someday. My buddy went there for his honeymoon a few months ago. Some of the pictures that he came back with, absolutely incredible, stunning. And it's a totally different vibe. I've been to Mexico. I've been to Jamaica, been to the Dominican, been to Peru. So I've been kind of in the Central South America
Only
areas.
we were money bags like
I know,
you,
right?
man. Unbelievable.
I prioritize
Is that where you're
traveling.
going
It's something
Monday?
that I love. Yeah.
Is that what you're doing this weekend? You're going to like Mexico casually?
No,
I'm
he's going
actually
to
going to
Disney
Disney
World.
Oh.
Free zoo here. in
He's
St. Louis.
He's taking off the day so he can go to the zoo.
Yeah, it's my wife's
Hey, I'd do
final
it.
day of
I would
maternity
too,
leave,
actually.
so
I would too. I did it actually when I was off last week or 2 weeks ago. Went to the zoo.
Be awkward though when I just go by myself.
Coming up in 15 minutes or
Pay
so,
somebody to go with you.
we will give you our football pick'em of the week.
No.
You can fade all of our picks, and you will be highly successful. We'll get into that coming up in about 15 minutes or
not
so.
wrong.
But coming up next, the Brewers are not a particularly high bar for the Cardinals to clear this offseason, and I don't think that's the team they should be targeting. We'll talk about why coming up next here on 101 ESPN. as I've been watching this Cardinals series against the Milwaukee Brewers, I've thought one thing to myself, Alex. This Brewers team ain't that good. Now, I did so while they, beat the heck out of the Cardinals in the last 3 games of the series.
Yeah, but a lot of teams have done that this year.
Man, you look at that lineup, you look at what they have done so far this year, they're a bottom 5 offense in Major League Baseball, and they have earned that offensive ranking. You look at some of the guys that are hitting in the top 5 of their order, it's guys they picked up off of waivers or guys that they traded for at the deadline. I mean, how many people in our audience do you think, Alex, are familiar with Sal Frelick?
I think
because that was the guy that led off yesterday for the Milwaukee Brewers. On the season, he has a 750 OPS.
He frelicked all over the Cardinals' pitching. Am I right?
That was terrible.
Like frolicked? Frelicked.
Yeah, basically the same thing.
That's what I said.
The reason why I bring this up is because as we go into the offseason, there's going to be a question of what do the Cardinals need to do? What is the target? How high do they need to get in order to be a playoff team again in 2024? I don't think the Brewers are that target. I think the Brewers are every bit as likely to take a step back next year as they are to take a step forward. Their manager is entering, this is the final year of his contract. It's entirely possible he decides to either step away for a year and try other opportunities, maybe get into the front office somewhere, or he might be the next manager of the Mets, man. His old GM in Milwaukee is now the president of baseball operations there. Maybe he just decides, hey, I'm going to go up there. That's going to be my newest opportunity. I don't know what they're going to do with their rotation. They might trade one of their front 2-line starters. I think they are every bit as likely to take a step back as they are to take a step forward. And what that means for St. Louis, do not use that as your bar. Don't use the Brewers as the team that you're trying to catch up with. Use the teams that are at the top of the National League East. Use the Dodgers. That is what you're trying to accomplish. Still take the lesson from last year and apply that to 2024. And I'm not talking about the lesson of 23. I'm talking about the lesson of 22, which is avoid the wild card round, man. Get into the top 2 of the National League, avoid the wild card round entirely, and get yourself a bye, essentially, into the NLDS, so that way you get a longer series where your roster can then take shape over the course of a 5-game NLDS. That is what the lesson should be from last year. Now go into next season and apply it.
I already feel like the Cardinals have a better offense than all of the teams in the NL Central. And I know that might sound weird because their team is terrible, but offensively next year, I view them as the best in the NL Central. And if you have the success I'm expecting from them in the offseason, you're going to have the best pitching too. Now, if you don't do the right things in the offseason, you're probably going to be right back to square one. But everything is going to be, I would imagine, if the Cardinals have that A-plus offseason they're wanting, people are going to be saying, oh, yeah, Cardinals win the NL Central, like they said coming into this season. The Cardinals have never, John Mozeliak has never used the division to say, oh, well, we have to do this in the offseason because this team's doing that. Mostly because nobody in that division does anything, specifically the Brewers and the Reds. That might change this year. I'm anticipating the Reds to be aggressive because of the young core that they've got. I'm also anticipating the Brewers to be aggressive now that they're changing. Just because I think they're changing things in terms of the front office. And I think the mindset might shift a little bit.
In Milwaukee?
Yeah.
In terms of what do you, when you say be aggressive, you think they'll...
I think they're going to be aggressive. Oh, okay. Well, I guess they're going to be aggressive in terms of tearing it down and trying to be aggressive to restart it faster, if that makes sense.
I thought you meant they're going to try to be aggressive to, like, kick this thing into high gear, go get Pete Alonso, go sign a big-time, get Sonny Gray in there. Like,
I think they're going to be aggressive to try and do what Cincinnati just did and Pittsburgh just did, but do it faster. That's what and so that gives you that opportunity. I don't think it's going to sway the Cardinals' moves. I think the Cardinals already know what has to be done because they know they can be superior in that division.
Yeah, and I think you're right. They cannot build like it is the NL Central that they're trying to surpass. Yes, you are behind everybody right now, but I agree with you. I think their offense is the best in the NL Central. I think if you make the right moves on the pitching staff, you have the best pitching staff in the National League Central. And I agree. I think Milwaukee's going to do kind of I don't even know what you'd call it, almost adding and subtracting at the same time. They're going to try to remain competitive while trying to sell high on some of their pieces. Cubs are probably going to be aggressive this offseason. Reds, I wouldn't count on them being aggressive. Their ownership's cheap as hell. And Pittsburgh just sucks.
Well, that's...
But BK's right. They cannot build to just say, oh, hey, let's get past the Milwaukee Brewers. No, that's like building for 90 wins. The lessons that should be learned, it shouldn't be like after each year you learn one lesson. A lesson should be added after each season. And the lesson from 2 years ago was you've got to avoid the wild card round because anything can happen in a best-of-3 series. And the lesson this year was you've got to get swing and miss. Don't just go, oh, we got to add swing and miss and we got to just build a 90-win team. No, you need to be building to try and win 95 games, and that's why you've got to revamp the rotation while also revamping the bullpen too. I think my biggest fear for the Cardinals this offseason is they go, we'll figure out the bullpen. We'll figure it out. We got numbers there. We'll just let those guys pitch, and if anything, we'll add at the deadline. They do that, my fear would be, okay, you built another NL Central 90-win team or 85-win team that you have to add at the deadline to get to 90 wins just to win the division when they should be trying to build and go, we've got to find a way to get ahead of the Dodgers or try and catch up to the Atlanta Braves because we need to avoid that wild card series.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. This one comes from the 314. Guys, it figures BK would think that the Cardinals are going to do something different than what they've done for the past 20 years. Now they'll be aggressive. Okay. Then the other teams, according to BK, won't be aggressive or at least try to be better than the team that they have right now and be more competitive than they have been in the past. None of this makes any sense. Every team is in a different period of their life cycle. And right now with the Brewers, they're in a really interesting spot, in my opinion. They've got a team that is going more towards the young side of things. They're calling up some of their prospects. You think back to the beginning of the year, some of the success that they were having was because of some of their young guys that were called up. The guy that I just mentioned, Sal Frelick, he's a former top 100 prospect. They have high hopes for him in the future, and I think that's the way that they're going to be trending. I think they are going to go much younger going into next season, and when you go young like that, we have certainly seen this firsthand here in St. Louis, and we're seeing it in Cincinnati. The highs are really high and the lows are really low. And those valleys, they take a while to get out of because they have not gone through the experiences of a Paul Goldschmidt, a Nolan Arenado, a Willson Contreras. And the nice thing about those guys is when they do go into those dry spells, and we've seen it, they go through some slumps, they're able to get out of it a little bit quicker. So that is one of the many reasons why I believe that the Brewers going into this offseason, I don't think they're tearing it down to the studs. I don't think this is going to be a team that wins 70 games next year. I think they're going to be competitive 85 to 90 again. I do think there's a real chance that they trade one of their front two starters, though, and they probably do so to kind of reset the clock on what their team can be. I do think there's a real chance that their manager, who I believe to be one of the best in the game, if not the best in Major League Baseball, ends up taking a job elsewhere or taking the year off next season. And if all of these things happen, yeah, I think they're going to take a little bit of a step back heading into 2024. I think the Cubs are about to be super aggressive. I think they might be in the Shohei Ohtani bidding war.
Agreed.
I think they're a team that is probably going to try to keep Cody Bellinger this offseason. I think they're absolutely going to be in the Pete Alonso sweepstakes. Like all of these things, I think it's in play for the Chicago Cubs because they're ready to start winning again. So, yeah, you are in a competition with the Cubs, but I think that is more your competition than Milwaukee. And the reason why I believe the Cardinals are going to do something that they haven't done in the last 20 years is because we've never seen them do this. We've never seen them in the last 20 years be embarrassed. That was the word that yesterday, Alex, when we talked to Doug Armstrong, he said we were embarrassed by what happened in the 2022 season. I think that the same is true for the Cardinals. I think the ownership is embarrassed. I think John Mozeliak is embarrassed. And I think that is going to trickle down into the decision-making of what do we got to do to get this thing back on track. So for all of those reasons and so many others, that's why I view this offseason the way that I do.
Is it weird that I don't feel that the Cardinals brass feel embarrassed? And I only say this because I think the Cardinals, in terms of the DeWitts and John Mozeliak, are set in their ways and know that this is a process. And they view this as, well, we're still doing the right things in terms of growing and developing our young talent. Look at Tink Hence, look at Graceffo and McGreevy, look at all of the offensive weapons that we've brought up. I think they're frustrated at how the season went, but I also don't think it's to the point of embarrassment that says we've got to change things significantly.
So I kind of understand where you're coming from because I think they don't view it as the Blues do, where the Blues are saying publicly, this is a retool. We were at a spot where we were kind of at the end of our competitive window, and the best thing for us was to kind of retool this thing on the fly. The Cardinals are viewing this more as this is a one-off. This is a one-off. Now, with that being said, I do think they will change their ways and be more aggressive this season by adding in a ton of starting pitching to help to avoid this. So is it embarrassment? I think I believe it is. I think they can't look at the product and go, oh my gosh, look at what we built. Just look at the attendance for games right now. There's nobody at the ballpark, and that is something that screams to Bill DeWitt and ownership group. But I think they will still be aggressive, but I do think they do view it a little bit different from the Blues, where the Blues said this is a retool. This is going to take maybe 3 years before we're actually super competitive. Maybe we back our way into the playoffs. I think for the Cardinals, the goal is hey, we want to build a contending team next year, and this was just a one-off for us.
I do think the Cardinals are embarrassed. And if they're not, then shame on them, frankly. This has been an embarrassing season for them, dude. The year that they let Adam Wainwright walk out the door, and listen, like, Waino was not good this year, and I don't think Waino gets to 200 if they were not a bad team, because I think he would have been pulled out of the rotation. He would have had to have been, because he wasn't performing. If they look at this and they say, what could we have done? Really? What was there to do? Then shame on them. And everybody should be fired.
Is it bad that I do feel like they kind of view that? Like,
why, though? Why do you feel that way?
Because the free agents weren't in the mindset of the Cardinals like, oh, yeah, this is worth it in terms of the pitchers. And they obviously weren't going to make a trade to get a catcher with those guys. You think they're going to make a trade to get a pitcher?
I think looking back, they regret not being more in on Pablo Lopez. I think that's something.
But if you weren't willing to move Nootbaar and Donovan for a premier Gold Glove catcher, why would you move it for a pitcher that
you could have moved one of those guys
that they felt like their pitching staff was good?
I don't know that they did. See, this is where I think that I kind of diverge a little bit from some Cardinals fans who disagree with this. And I think both perspectives are fair, by the way. I kind of aligned a little bit with the Cardinals going into the season. I thought they had enough offensively and enough depth pitching-wise to be able to make it through the first half of the season.
I mean, I did too. I thought their pitching was going to be better than what people were giving them credit for.
I didn't know that for sure, but I felt like they had options enough where you needed to find out. You needed to go into the season and see, okay, what does it look like with Jack Flaherty this year? We got to get answers there. And if Jack Flaherty is the guy that he used to be when he's healthy now, I think you're fine. But that was a huge risk of we don't know if Jack Flaherty's actually going to be good or not, but we got to find out. And the way that you do that is by just letting him start every fifth day. And if you brought in a new starter, one of these guys that they were hoping to find out answers on would not have been able to be in their rotation. And I think this offseason, the lesson to be learned from that is, fine, so be it. Like, this is where Tanner, I think, has a really good point on the Thompson thing, and we just diverge again, is I want to find out what Thompson can be. I think he is a pretty good fifth starter. And I think to your point on this, T-Bone, you're saying, yeah, but we've thought the same thing about Jack Flaherty this year, and it didn't go well, and they didn't have any answer to be able to be the fail-safe. You can't do that again next year. So I think they have learned from it. I think they might not be as fully invested as what some fans would say, where, hey, go get Nola and Snell and Yamamoto. I don't think they're going to do something crazy like that. But I do think they're ready to splash into this offseason market and go get one of those premier free agent starting pitchers. I think that's something that they know they have to do it in order to fix this rotation. Coming up next, we're getting to our football pick'em. T-Bone is currently in the lead. He's got 7 points after the first 2 weeks with his picks. Alex and I are both tied. We've got 2 weeks left in this first month of our pick'em challenge. We'll get into it next year on 101 ESPN.
exclusive Blues training camp coverage on 101 ESPN. BK and Ferrario are live at Blues training camp at the Centene Community Ice Center. Refreshed by Bud Light and E&B Granite. Bernie Federko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring.
Alongside Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. If you're watching on YouTube, by the way, we are back on YouTube. 101 ESPN STL is where you can go to find us. YouTube has decided that we are not actually impersonating ourselves, and therefore we are allowed back on the platform. So shout out to YouTube.
Wait till they find out that you're impersonating a good sports talk host.
There's no doubt by anybody in our audience that is happening.
Yeah, we're all high five on that one.
All right, let's get to our football pick'em for the upcoming week. If you're new to this, the way that this goes, each of us picks 3 different games. It is a confidence pool, scale of 1 to 3. 3 being the most, 1 of course being the lowest level of confidence. And at the end of the weekend, we will add all those up. And by the end of the month, we are in week 3 of this month. We got 2 more weeks to go. Whoever has the lowest number of points will end up getting punished. Our first punishment is wearing a pregnancy simulator where there are 12 different settings, and at the end of each segment over the course of one day, whoever loses will have to have that from 1 to 12 level of contractions.
Yep. Basically, we're having contractions for 3 straight hours, boys.
It'll be fantastic. So looking forward to that. Looking forward to T-Bone wearing the contraction machine. All right, Alex, let's start with you. Your first pick, your level 1 pick is what this week?
All right, level 1, I don't like this spread, but I know this team's going to win. What? No. Well, hold on a minute. Let me explain here.
Maybe you don't understand. You should feel confident.
Yeah, well, I don't. This is why it's the number 1. It's my least confident of the 3, but I'm still confident.
You could go any NFL or college football game over the course of the weekend.
Can I just freaking explain it? Can you stop interrupting me?
Go ahead.
12.5 points is a lot, but Arizona sucks, and Dallas is going to make Joshua Dobbs regret playing football. I think Dallas is going to easily cover that, and if they get me wrong, that's where my concern's at. 12.5 is a lot, but let's be real. Arizona had, what was it, a 28-point lead against the Giants and blew it in 1/2. So number 1 on this in terms of confidence, Dallas minus 12.5.
I actually like that pick.
12.5, anything above 10 makes me nervous when I pick that spread, especially when it's a favorite on the road.
Yeah. No, it should make you nervous, but I like the pick. That defense going up against Josh Dobbs doesn't seem like it's going to be a good combination for Arizona. All right, my first pick, my level 1 pick for the week, is actually going to be the New England Patriots. I like the Patriots in this spot a whole lot, guys. The Patriots defense and Bill Belichick going up against Zach Wilson and the Jets offense, and I'm only laying 2.5. They could win by 3. They can win a 23-20 game on the road in New York, and I can go ahead and take that points. Yeah, if this was 3.5, I wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole. At 2.5, I love the Patriots on the road at New York minus the 2.5 points.
I like that one. That was one that I kind of went back and forth on, but I just don't trust either team enough. There were 3 games I went back and forth on for my number 1 pick. I thought about the Steelers in Las Vegas. I don't trust Kenny Pickett. I also thought about that pick'em game in Minnesota, but I don't trust either team, Minnesota or the Chargers. So I settled on, because the news just came out about 20 minutes ago, I'm going to go with the Ravens minus 8 versus the Colts. Anthony Richardson has officially been ruled out. I don't even know who their backup is. I think it's Gardner Minshew.
It's Thor, man.
Yeah, that screams turnovers. I think Baltimore's going to have an easy time covering that spread. I like the Ravens minus 8. Wasn't going to take that until Richardson just got ruled out about 20 minutes ago.
Well, speaking of somebody ruled out and swaying my decision, oh, wait, never mind. This is my number 3. Bad transition by me. I can't do number 3 yet. Number 2 on this list is I'm going to pick Brandon Staley's team.
Oh. I thought about this and chose not to do so.
I just said I wasn't doing it.
It's plus 1.5, which is why I'm leaning towards it. I know both teams need a win, but if you're the Chargers, you need it more than anybody else. And I'm expecting Mike Williams and Keenan Allen to have a big game. Do we know if Eckler's back in or not?
He's not expected to play.
He's not expected, so you're going to have, what is it, Joshua Kelly as the backup in this one? It's a 1.5 point spread, and I'm going to go with the team that's the underdog here, and I think the Chargers can do this one.
I think Joey Bosa is listed as questionable as well. Did not practice yesterday, so I wouldn't expect Joey Bosa necessarily to play either. I think the Chargers are the better team. I like the pick. They were a part of I had 5 games that I was looking at. They were one of the 5. I just couldn't bring myself to do it. My 2-point game instead, though, is going to the college side of things. I mentioned this earlier, guys. Oregon State has a tremendous running game. And they've got your boy, DJ Uyunglele.
Ooh-wee!
I think Oregon State is a significantly better team than Washington State. I think this line should be about 6.5, and instead it's only 3. Give me Oregon State minus the 3 points. I'm going to the college football side of things for my number 2 pick this weekend.
Yeah, I don't trust Uyunglele enough yet to where I was willing to take that game, because I did look at that game also. I'm going to the college slate, too, for number 2. I believe this team is winning this game outright. Ohio State is overrated. Give me the Notre Dame Fighting Irish +3 against Ohio State. They are at home, and I am shocked that they are not favored against Ohio State. I think Ohio State, they don't have a quarterback. I know they've got great weapons, but they don't have the quarterback that Notre Dame does in Hartman. I like the Notre Dame Fighting Irish +3.
Like the other side of that one. I actually like
That's a win.
Win for T-Bone.
That's 2 points, baby.
All right, going back to my transition that I didn't get to use, but it was perfect off of T-Bone's number 1 pick. My number 3, speaking of somebody being ruled out and changing my decision, I'm taking Seattle -5.5. The Red Rocket is playing for Carolina. I couldn't even tell you the last time he started as a quarterback. I know it was with Chicago, but it's been a while.
Last year.
I thought it was 2 years
Saints.
ago.
Saints
Oh,
quarterback.
was it? Oh, well, we all know how that went for them. See, that's how bad it's been. I think Seattle's going to be easily with this one. I know Metcalf was a questionable, but I think he practiced yesterday, if I'm not mistaken. I think Seattle easily handles that -5.5.
I like that game, and then I saw that it's supposed to rain. And as I learned with the Cincinnati Bengals in Week 1, it rains, anything can happen, so it scared me away from it. I did like that pick at all.
Yeah, but if it rains, that means they're going to run the ball, and that means Kenneth Walker is going to get the ball as much as possible. And I fear for the opposition when Kenneth Walker rushes.
Can we acknowledge what just took place?
I don't think that dude knew where he was. I think he thought he was going into a bathroom.
So we're broadcasting live at the E&B Granite Studios out of the Centene Community Ice Center. And the way that this studio works, we're kind of like at the end of the hall as people are walking towards where the Blues are practicing. Now, Blues practice is over at this point. There is really nothing more going on down here at the Centene Community Ice Center. And a gentleman just walked over, opened the door as if he knew exactly where he was going.
Oh, he knew what he was doing.
Looked in, and we all kind of looked at him like, what do you think you're doing in here, my friend? So that is why, if you're watching on YouTube, we all just looked like we had seen a ghost. All right, my number 3 pick for this week.
I don't know how he didn't see what he was walking into. Those glasses are like magnifying glasses.
Can somebody please explain to me why the Browns are a 3.5-point home favorite this week against the Tennessee Titans?
Forward, baby.
I think that the Titans are a better football team right now. I like their defense every bit as much as I like the Browns' defense. I think they have the better quarterback in this game. They certainly have the better running back in this game. The Browns have done nothing to impress me so far this year offensively. Deshaun Watson has looked every bit as bad as he did a year ago. Not only do I think that the Tennessee Titans cover this 3.5-point spread in Cleveland, I think the Titans win outright. I've got the Titans plus the 3.5 at Cleveland. It is easily my single most confident pick going into this weekend.
Oh, man, Tennessee scares me, but being plus 3.5, I like that pick. Tennessee just scares the hell out of me. Last week, they almost lost 2.
And that feels like a game where it could just be kind of fight till the very end, run the football a ton, and it ends up being a field goal that wins it. And in that case, he's safe
covered.
at plus 3.5. The one I'm most confident in this week, I'm going back to the college football ranks. I'm going Texas minus 14.5 at Baylor. Baylor was able to cover against Utah, but they were playing their backup quarterback in that game. Baylor's not a good football team, and I really like Texas. Quinn Ewers, they're going to be ready to go. They kind of got off to that slow start against Wyoming last week. I think they're going to come out. They're going to be throwing punches early on, and I think they're going to cover the 14.5 easily.
All right, T-Bone sticks with what he knows. He sticks with 2 college football picks going into the weekend. His second and third selections, he's got Notre Dame plus the 3. He's got Texas minus the 14. He also has one NFL game. He's going with the Ravens minus the 8 points. Alex is taking a big favorite with the Cowboys as a minus 12.5-point favorite. He's got the Chargers plus 1.5, and he has the Seahawks as a 5.5-point favorite as well. I'm going with 3 games that are expected to be roughly within a field goal. I've got the Patriots minus 2.5 against the Jets. I've got Oregon State minus the 3 against Washington State, and I think that the Titans will not only cover the 3.5-point spread in Cleveland, I think they flat out win that game against the Cleveland Browns. Boys, how do you feel going into this week with your selections?
This isn't good because I feel confident with my picks. Last week I didn't, and I got 5 points out of it, or 3 points out of it. Now I should have been 5. Thanks, Sean McVay.
What's the one that screws you? If you end up losing this week, what's the one where you're like, I should have known better?
Probably the fact I put Chargers at 2. I probably should have did Cowboys at 2, Chargers at 1, but I went with my gut on that one. I like the smaller spread.
T-Bone?
I think the one that could come back to bite me is the Colts. I could see where the Ravens, they don't have much of a idea of what the offense is going to look like with Gardner Minshew because it's a totally different offense. With Richardson, you can run the football. You can have him drop back to throw. Minshew's not going to be running a quarterback design. Maybe that catches the Ravens a little bit by surprise, and maybe they only win by a touchdown instead of 8. So I think that could be the one that could really hurt me.
Yeah, I think you should have gone Ohio State over Notre Dame. I think you're underestimating the fact that Ohio State has the best wide receiver that I've seen in college football.
I think you should take more of BK's football advice.
Unlike if you have a great running back who the quarterback can hand the football to, that scares me. This quarterback can't get the ball to the damn wide receiver, so I'm not that worried.
Yeah, my concern is that I'm underestimating what Washington State is so far. That's the game that I am probably most worried about. They had a really nice win against Wisconsin. I'm also not sure how good Wisconsin is. Other than that, they've played Colorado State and Northern Colorado. It's not as if this is a schedule that's been particularly daunting for the Cougars thus far. Meanwhile, I've been really impressed. Every time that I've seen an Oregon State opportunity, they look good. Neither of these teams has played very much in terms of the quality opponents. I think Oregon State is a better team, though. I like Oregon State a lot, but that is the one that if I end up going awry this week, I think it's my college football pick.
When you go awry this week.
He's Alex Ferrario. That's Tanner Hendrickson, and I'm Brandon Kiley. By the way, I do want to get a little bit of news to pass along here.
Oh, Joey Bosa's playing now?
The Missouri Tigers. Our guy, Dennis Gates, just keeps doing it, man. Honor Boating is a 4-star recruit out of Arkansas. He's been rumored to be a Missouri lean over the last few months, Alex, and it is made official. He has committed to the Tigers. He's in next year's recruiting class for the Missouri basketball team. Dude, Dennis Gates is putting together one of the best recruiting classes that we have ever seen for Mizzou basketball.
I just read that it's the 3rd or 4th best recruit that Mizzou's ever had agree. But I also read that they now have the #1 recruiting class in the country. Is that true?
I mean, it sounds right.
I mean, suck it, T-Bone.
The recruits that they have committed, according to Rivals at least, ranked 23rd nationally, 54th nationally, 116th nationally, and 85th nationally. So they have 4 recruits that have already committed to Missouri basketball that are in the top 120 in the country. This is unprecedented for Mizzou basketball thus far.
Freaking so pumped for Mizzou basketball this year.
#2 recruiting class in the country behind only North Carolina thus far.
Suck it, T-Bone.
Hey, we're a team that likes to win in the transfer portal rather than recruit, mostly because
how's that going right now?
Mostly because Brad Underwood learned his lesson.
Missouri definitely doesn't win in the transfer portal.
Did you watch Mizzou hoops last year?
They lost to Princeton. That's Princeton.
What did Illinois do?
But we played a great team and lost, okay? At least we can keep our head held high.
I don't think you can.
We didn't lose to some nerds at an Ivy League school.
Whoa! Spot on, actually.
Pretty good. Dennis Gates is the best coach in the country.
This is a freaking
Dennis Gates is
round.
modern-day Coach K.
I hope that our show is still together the day that Dennis Gates leaves and signs with somebody
Dennis
else.
Gates is going to sign a lifetime contract. You see that contract that Coach Cal signed at Kentucky? Man, that's going to look like nothing compared to what
Cal's been
Mizzou's
wanting out
gonna
of
pony
Kentucky.
up. No. He's going to want out?
Yeah, Coach Cal, he can't do it anymore in Kentucky.
Kentucky would like him to leave.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying.
At this point, they would love to pay him to get all the way up out of there. By the way, Missouri has a top 50 recruit on campus this weekend as well.
Suck it, T-Bone. Fighting a line I won't be doing much fighting this year.
I hope they
Does
flop.
bragging rights even bragging rights if you go to it? Because you're going to lose.
I'm going to start writing down every shot that you take at my Illini basketball program so I can mesh them all together for the highlights of the Illini win this year.
You don't
bragging
even
rights.
believe this.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I think they could show up and beat at least Mizzou. I think if there's one game they would get excited about, they would beat Mizzou.
At least Mizzou. Trying to at least win one conference
all this
game.
talent's going to want the ball in their hands. It's not going to gel well together. It's going to be a disaster.
Dennis Gates brings people together.
Sure.
Missouri's going to be better this year than they were last year.
Yeah,
Mizzou can't say this, or Illinois can't say the same thing.
I'm just saying, man. I think that Missouri is going to be a better basketball team this year
Tell
than
him,
they were a
BK.
year ago.
Tell him.
BK
Suck it,
also
T-Bone.
BK always tells me too, like, Mizzou football's winning 10 this year, and I go, man, they might win 5, and then they go 6-6. Like, he's
when did I
just
say
too
that?
overhyped about any Missouri program.
I think you said the
He
other
also
day
told me
they're
the
gonna
Mizzou
win 8.
baseball coach was a great hire. We'll see how he pans out.
I didn't say it was a great hire. I think it was the smart hire. I don't know how he's going to do it. Mizzou.
Great
It's
interview.
It's an impossible job.
Well, how come we didn't ask him that when we had him on?
It was a great
I
interview.
literally did.
You can check it out on our podcast page,
I wasn't
101ESPN.com.
listening.
That's Tanner Hendrickson. He's a hater. He's Alex Ferrario. I'm Brandon Kiley. You've got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Coming up next, the Blues have added some serious personnel this offseason. Can it impact the special teams that were abysmal a year ago? Alex has the answer next year on 101 ESPN.
I'm Jordan Deegan. The Sports Center update is brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. The St. Louis Cardinals fell to the Milwaukee Brewers yesterday 6-0 in the final game of the series. The Cardinals won one out of that 4-game series and is in San Diego tonight facing off against the Padres. Dakota Hudson is on the mound for the Cards and first pitch is at 8:40. St. Louis City SC continues towards the postseason as they take on Minnesota United FC tomorrow night at 7:30. Minnesota sits at 10th in the Western Conference with 37 points, while City is in first, 13 points ahead of them. And in college football tomorrow, Mizzou is taking on Memphis at 6:30, and Illinois will be playing Florida Atlantic at 2:30. I'm Jordan Deegan. This Sports Center update was brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, an independent American Standard heating and air conditioning dealer.
On their special teams from a year ago. They made some additions in the offseason that might be able to help them do exactly that. Alongside Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. Alex, you look at what Kevin Hayes did last year. 6 goals, 10 assists on the power play. If you look at the time on ice, he was roughly the equivalent of what Braden Shin did here in St. Louis in terms of the time that he was on the ice for power play. A guy that I don't think we're talking enough about on the power play, and I'm going to become the biggest Nick Ritchie fan you've ever seen in your entire life.
Welcome to being insufferable if you're about to say what I think you're about to say.
Nick Ritchie had 4 goals and 7 assists on the power play a year ago.
Yeah, because he was playing for Arizona, who has no power play specialist.
He had the same time on ice on the power play for his teams, plural, including Calgary.
He played 16 games in Calgary.
As Vladimir Tarasenko did last season. So he got some opportunities there. Combined, that is 10 goals and 17 assists from those 2 players that are going to be added into your power play this year. And they're not alone. It's also Oskar Sundqvist and what he can potentially bring to your penalty kill as well. Alex, this was one of the biggest issues for the Blues last season. They had to improve it. It's going to come with internal and external improvements. But do you think that those guys are going to be significant contributors either on the PP or the PK?
I do. Let's start with the power play. I think the power play is already going to be more successful now that Vladimir Tarasenko is gone. And I know that sounds crazy to say.
You've been saying this for years, though.
But Tarasenko is a goal scorer. And what does Tarasenko want? The puck. And I know that you've got goal scorers on this team like Jordan Kyrou that want the puck, but Tarasenko was a guy that wanted the puck in one specific position that just didn't work for the team, and that was on that far side to get the one-time shot, but Vladdy didn't like the one-time shot. Now, it just seems like a more cohesive unit of 5 guys that are going to be ready to put together an offensive surge. When you talk about, and I'm just predicting what a number 1 power play unit's going to look like, Shen, Booch, Thomas, Kyrou, and Torrey Krug. That's 5 guys. Verana might be on your second unit right now, but I can understand the Verana sentiment as the number 1 guy.
Thank you.
It just depends on where you're going to move these guys around. But you're talking about cohesion of certain guys that understand the premise that have played together. It's not like you got 5 new dudes that are going to be playing together. Second line is going to be a Kevin Hayes, a Kapanen potentially, a Verana, a Neighbors, a Nick Ritchie. You're going to have Saad Shen. No, Shen's on the number 1 unit. Stop trying to put Verana on the number 1 unit. Shen's on the number 1 unit.
But I like Verana.
Why are you throwing the
Booch? You didn't mention Booch.
No, Booch was on the number 1 unit. Do you listen when I speak?
Do you have 10 guys on the number 1 unit?
Yeah.
Booch,
we're not
Thomas,
even have a goal.
Kyrou, Shen, Krug.
We're going 6-on-4 the
Well,
whole
you
time.
could pull the goalie if you want to.
Yeah.
6-on-4 is smart to go with that one. You're going to have 2 units
PK's
to
numbers
use.
tell you to do that.
And you got guys who can score. That's the benefit of the power play. So I don't think they're going to be where they were 2 years ago, where they were top 5, but I do think you're going to be top 10 power play. Penalty kill is where I see significant changes, and a lot of this is going to have to do with Marco Scandella being available. You didn't have him last year. You went from being the 5th best penalty kill to being the bottom 5 penalty kill in the NHL. And I'm not saying it's all on Marco Scandella, but Marco Scandella is a premier penalty killer for your team. He's going to be getting premier time. Bortuzzo and Tucker are going to be getting premier time. And then we're talking Falk, Parayko, and Leddy. You've got more options on the penalty kill than last year when we were trying to pretend that Callie Rosen makes sense on a penalty kill.
And I'm going to go back to the power play here for just a second. I'm not sure that the power play changes based on anything that they brought in this offseason in terms of Hayes, if Richie's going to go park himself in front of the net. It's more so on, do they have that one-time shot? Because they didn't have that last year. With Perron being gone, and it was one of my questions going into the year, will the power play take a step back? And it did significantly, and it wasn't because they don't have talent on that top unit. They do. It's because they didn't have a one-time shot, and that's why I hope that Veron is on that top unit, because you saw at times last year, he's got an incredible shot, and he can do the one-timer. Did Kyrou work on a one-timer this offseason to where maybe he becomes that guy that can put up a ton of points on the power play because of that? That's the whole thing for me on the power play. The power play will not take any step forward if there is not a one-time shot that is a massive threat against them.
I'll tell you the benefit of Verona being on that number 1 power play unit. He shoots left. And all of the guys that I mentioned, although Boots shoots left also, you want to have a guy who can shoot right and left with their offhand on both sides so that the goaltender is going post to post, not knowing where it's going to go. Last year, you had way too many guys who shot right-handed on a power play, and it was pass, 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 pass. Now we're talking if Verona gets it or Boots gets it, whoever has that one-timer, one-time threat over here, one-time threat over here, you've got Braden Shen in the middle, and Thomas is distributing.
So we mentioned Nick Ritchie's name a few different times, and somebody on the text line makes a fair point. Guys, Nick Ritchie's family doesn't even talk about him as much as you.
What? Yes, they do.
Probably fair, honestly.
No, I think they're right.
No, that's my family.
I think he's got a real chance to not only make this team, but be a significant contributor for this team. However, when you look at the decisions that this team's going to have to make, and we're really talking about that 23rd man, right, the last spot on the roster, they have some difficult choices there. They want to get a guy like Sammy Blais some opportunities. He's on the third line right now because of how well he finished last season and how well he played so far or in the summer as well. So Blais is one of these guys that's under consideration. Toropchenko is under consideration. Neighbors is under consideration. Sonny is under consideration. Alexandrov, Nick Ritchie. You start looking at, okay, how do the numbers work out? You're only going to keep 13 forwards most likely. Alex, when you think about who's going to be the final few spots, so the fourth line plus that guy that is going to be up in the press box occasionally, who do you think ends up being the favorites for those 4 spots on your roster right now?
So the way that I break this down in terms of roster is you're talking about 23 guys, 2 goaltenders, and then 21 position players. What they had last year was they carried 8 defensemen and 13 forwards because you wanted more forwards. I personally view this as 7 defensemen and 14 forwards, mostly because I'd like that versatility on the offensive side. I think you distinguish who the top 7 defensive players are and roll with those guys and have some of the minors that can come up and down. And some of this is just waiver wire purposes of if you believe guys make it through.
So you're saying Calle Rosen, see ya?
I would say either Calle Rosen, Tyler Tucker, one of those 2, see ya. You go down to the minors and you be a top player. And I view this as Scott Perunovich. If Torrey Krug is healthy, Perunovich is starting in the minors. And my 7 defensemen are Letty Parayko, Krug, Falk, Scandella, Bortuzzo, and Tucker. That's my 7 defensemen. And then the forward side, I personally view this as you've got your 12 forwards, whoever wins that 4th line role. Right now, I would imagine Neighbors, Sonny, Toropchenko in front. That leaves 2 forwards. Nick Ritchie, I believe, is going to be one of them because he's a role player. You've got to carry another centerman. Because if you lose Sonny, nobody's playing the 4th line center role for you. You don't have another centerman. Ritchie can't do it. Toropchenko can't do it. Neighbors, Blais, these guys aren't centermen.
The other thing is you're going to need to rest Sonny throughout the year.
Absolutely. You're not running him through the wall in the early portion of the season.
Because I'm not so worried about the injury. Like, if it's a long-term injury, you're just calling up Alexandrov. He's going to be your 4th line center, and you figure it out. Or maybe you call up Dean, depending on who's performing better at that point in time. The injury situation is fine. It's the night-to-night managing his stress.
Yeah.
Because there's going to be back-to-backs where you're going to not want to have Sonny in the lineup for both of those games. You put him out there for one, and then the second one, okay, well, if you've got Toropchenko, Ritchie, and then Blais/Neighbors as that other 4th line player, none of those guys are centers. Mm-hmm. So you can't really platoon that spot in the back-to-backs if that's the way you go and you have the 8 defensemen on your roster. So I do think, much like when the Cardinals have to make a decision of do we go 14-12 or do we go 13-13, you're going to see something like that in terms of what the forward and defenseman situation is going into this season. And it could mean that they end up losing out on a guy like Calle Rosen as a result. I'm not sure on this.
Yeah, he's waivers eligible.
So he would probably end up getting picked up by another team. Are you okay with that?
It might be the reason you put Tyler Tucker down in the minors again, because Tyler Tucker doesn't have to go through waivers. And I know that sucks to say because everybody's excited about Tucker, but ask yourself this. How do 8 defensemen get into the lineup? They don't. You're not carrying 11 forwards and 7 defensemen anymore in starting lineups. And Tucker plays like Bortuzzo. And if an injury pops up, okay, well then, yeah, Tucker's going to get in. But I'm not going to carry a young defenseman that I want to be an NHL player to sit in the press box a majority of the nights. And Bortuzzo's playing if he's healthy because he's a great penalty killer for me. So this is when the waivers versus the non-waivers. This is that discussion. Do I take the chance of losing Calle Rosen? Because you will lose Calle Rosen. A team's going to pounce on what he did last year because he's got offense. To me, I would keep a Calle Rosen because he's a role player and a really good 7th defenseman, and let Perunovic and Tucker be top defensemen in Springfield when injuries pop up, or if they dominate, and then you bring them up and you tell somebody they're sitting in. That's where I go to the forward side. To me, if Richie's making this team, which I truly believe he will, it's Alexandrov or Walker as that last forward. And I
wouldn't go Walker.
I would go Walker because they love him. He plays.
He's not a center.
He played center last year. He won 54% of the faceoffs and had 95 of them. Like, Booch didn't do that.
No, Booch was like 35%.
Yeah, so I mean, like, you can pick your, like, they'll probably lean towards Alexandrov.
I wouldn't do it with Dean. That's the one guy I definitely wouldn't make as your 14th forward, because now you're it's the conversation that we had all year with the Cardinals where it's like, hey, you're not going to put Jordan Walker as your 4th outfielder.
Well, and
it doesn't make any sense.
And it's what Army said about progress with these young players. Dean they view as a top 6, top 9 centerman. You're not going to put him in a 4th line or a bench role. You're going to let him go to Springfield and be that guy. Here's the difference, once again, with waivers. Alexandrov doesn't need waivers. Walker does. Do you want to take the chance of losing one of those guys? So I would lean more towards they keep Walker because Walker can play wing, Walker can play center if Sonny needs a night off.
So we do have a question on the text line that I think we should probably address, because I think sometimes people hear the idea of a one-way contract and they think to themselves, this means that guy is guaranteed to be in the NHL. That's not what that means. No. And we should clear this up for anybody that's listening right now. A two-way contract basically means that athlete's salary is dependent upon whether or not they're in the AHL or the NHL. It changes. You don't get your NHL salary in the AHL if you're on a two-way deal. You'll go down to the AHL's salary system. If you get a one-way contract from the Blues, basically what that means is that whatever that number is, so for Scott Perunovic, I think it's like $800,000 basically. If he's in the NHL, he's making $800,000. If he is sent to the AHL, he is an $800,000 AHL player that the Blues are paying his salary for him to go down there to be an AHL player. It's basically as if the Blues had sent Vladimir Tarasenko down to the AHL last year. They obviously wouldn't have done that, but they could have technically, and he would have made the $7 million for them as an AHL player. You see this occasionally. It's pretty rare, though. That is what the two-way versus the one-way distinction is. The waivers are something completely different. That is dependent upon age, and when you enter the league, it gets a bit confusing. It confuses the hell out of me, frankly. But the two-way versus one-way is just how much are you making if you're sent down?
Yeah.
That is all it means.
Certain games played dictates waivers. Whether you're two-way or one-way, two-way, if I'm not mistaken, I believe you can avoid the waivers no matter what. You can move up and down.
No, it's just based upon your age.
So it's based
age
upon
and games played.
Age and games played.
The two-way versus the one-way does not matter when it comes to whether or not those guys are going to be sent down. That's just the money that they make if they're up in the NHL versus down in the AHL.
So, and this is, again, the conversation. If you're going defense, Perunovic, you don't have to worry about the waivers. Tucker, you don't have to worry about waivers. Rosen, you're going to have to put him through waivers. Who do you lean towards there? And then on the forward side, like these guys that we're talking about in the competition, Mackenzie McEachran, he's going to have to go through waivers. Alexandrov does not. Walker, I'm not sure what his numbers are at in terms of games played, how that matches to waivers, but my understanding is he would have to go through waivers. And those are guys that the Blues would sit, the front office brass sits in their office and says, do we want to take the risk of losing this guy over letting this player go to the minors and develop still? And I think that's the case of how they're going to form this roster.
With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Coming up next, we're hitting the junk drawer here on 101 ESPN.
Blues coverage is right here on 101 ESPN. BK and Ferrario are broadcasting live from the Centene Community Ice Center for Blues training camp. Refreshed by Bud Light and E&B Granite. Bernie Federko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring. Let's open it up. The Junk Drawer with BK and Ferrario.
Brought to you by Fenton Bar and Grill. Best trust wings in Missouri. Dine in, carry out, 7 days a week.
T-Bone on BK. You've got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Alex, tonight you and I, T-Bone's ditching us, but you and I are going to Blues and Brews.
Oh, baby.
Down at Anheuser-Busch Brewery. We're looking forward to seeing any of you that may have been able to secure tickets for that. If you haven't, check out 101ESPN.com. You'll see the full information for the events tonight. It's going to be a lot of fun. We got food trucks going on down there. Obviously, some great beer, some drinks. We'll be out there chatting with you guys. And some Blues players. We'll be answering a live Q&A as well. So plenty of fun to be had down at the Anheuser-Busch Brewery.
I will not have headphones in, just if anybody's wondering.
So the reason why I bring this up, Alex, is because we've been talking about this a little bit off air. It's Baby Boy's first opportunity to meet the viewing public, so to speak.
Yeah, we all know your ulterior motives in this one, though.
You think?
Yeah.
What are my ulterior motives?
BK wants to be the star of the show, and he realizes that Shen and Parayko and Bennington are all going to be here, and BK's like, man, I can't have that. This is me. This is the BK and Ferrario show. You know what sets me above the rest? A 10-week-old boy. And 11, he says
11 weeks.
11 weeks.
Yesterday, yeah.
Everybody's going to come over and be like, not to BK, to the baby, to baby Luke, not to BK.
I was about to say T-Bone's not there,
but
man.
Nothing warms BK up, nothing riles him up more than people coming to talk to him. And BK is going to be like, yep, let's bring baby boy. We understand, man.
I know why Alex is upset about this. Because he knows we're basically viewed as a pair. And he knows that we're going to be next to each other. And therefore, when they come to talk to me, you know who they're also going to be talking to? Alex Ferrario. So I'm dragging him into this situation where he is now going to have to talk to more people because I'm bringing baby Luca to the event.
See, you think we're a pair. We're not a pair. You just act like a pair. I'm a separate entity.
Are you?
Yeah.
Oh, you are now on a new podcast.
Yeah, I joined Donnie on Last Minute Blues podcast. He's going to start having me on a little bit more.
Man, I'm working with 2 bigwigs.
He has officially one-upped us, T-Bone.
Yeah.
That gets sent out not just through us, but through the Blues.
Look, guys, for 3 months out of the year, I'm known as BK and Ferrario. But for the other 9 months out of the year, I'm known as pre- and post-game host Alex Ferrario.
Somebody on the text line makes an interesting point.
Yeah?
Guys, let's be real. He's bringing Luca so he can leave early with no questions asked.
He thinks that's what he's going to be able to do.
So here's the thing that I find to be really funny. T-Bone?
Yeah.
That would be the Alex move. Like, if ever there was an Alex Ferrario move, it would have been bringing one of his 2 beautiful daughters to one of these events to leave early, to use them as the excuse of, we got to get home. But what he does instead, this is every bit as good of a move, actually. Hey, we have their grandparents, our parents watching the kids. We got to be home by a specific time.
Rookie move? Pro move.
I actually think his move is better.
Really?
Yeah,
Babysitter has to leave by 8:30.
Because
I gotta go.
Exactly.
Baby Luca has a good time and is laughing and joking and chuckling and he's awake, he's having fun. You're not leaving. Oh, baby Luca's upset. Really? Because he was smiling 10 seconds ago. Everyone's gonna want to hold baby Luca.
No, that's the thing.
Kara's like, hey, look, we're having a fun time out. Luca's good. Let's enjoy ourselves.
Yep.
Meanwhile, babysitter's got babysitter just texted me. He got an emergency at home. I got to get home.
Yeah, see, I think that...
Boom, baby!
I think that's the pro move, and you're not the center of attention at an event. And I think that's the better move, because I think he's right. I think, one, people are going to be drawn to, cute little baby boy,
I would
and then
say
they show
this.
up. And then if Luca gets fussy like 5 minutes in,
absolutely.
Pro move.
Absolutely.
If Luca's like the baby...
It's a gamble.
BK's going to be starting, like, pinching Luca's arm and, like, cry, kid, cry.
If Luca's anything like the baby I saw at Busch Stadium when I was at the Cardinals game on Tuesday, who seriously did not cry for the entirety of the game,
you're stuck for the whole party.
I'm going to be able to sit on a bench and crack open a nice Budweiser, and nobody's going to bother me. Meanwhile, BK's over here, people left, right. Oh, my God, look at the cute
So
baby.
the move is actually just not feeding him for like 2 hours prior to this event.
Well, that's
that way he
torture.
gets super
That's
hungry.
torture.
About 30 minutes in, and we're like, oh, gotta go. Baby boy's very hungry.
But Kara breastfeeds, so she can find a personal spot and breastfeed him there. And
Oh,
then
we
good to
gotta go
go for another couple of hours.
Gotta go home.
See, when you try that move, I'm going to be like, no, Kara can breastfeed. There's a spot she can use it back there.
I think kids are the best icebreaker, though. I really do.
They really are. That's what I utilize that with Adelaide a lot. Like, it is a really good icebreaker.
And unlike, because Adelaide could like run around too at a party if you put her down. Luke's not running anywhere.
No, Luca's sitting
he's
in the
right
arms.
there. He's right there.
Somebody on the text line says this as if they think I don't know it. BK is going to learn really fast that when you have a kid, nobody actually wants to talk to you. They just want to see your baby. 100%.
Man,
That's the point, my friend.
They didn't want to talk to him to begin with.
That's the point.
And you know how you shoo him away? You're like, oh, no, you can't hold him. Or you can't touch him or anything right now. He's still too young.
Well, that is the move. He doesn't have all of his
I know. Believe me. This is how I kept people away.
I'm very excited
I got to
go
stay
out
at
there.
home for the first, 2 months of both of my girls' lives because I'm sorry she can't go out in public.
Somebody said the most unbelievable part of this entire exchange is that Alex is actually going to be cracking open a Budweiser as his beer of choice. Is that your go-to? Is that your go-to AB product?
Yeah, I do love me some Budweiser.
I don't believe you at all. I would 100%
Oh,
believe
man,
he's going to have one of their
I've seen him with the
seltzers.
Budweiser.
Yeah, I
That's
like
not what I'm
Budweisers.
saying. I believe him that he drinks Budweiser. He's definitely going to have a seltzer tonight.
That's true.
I see. It's not seltzer season anymore.
Oh, that is true.
It's not
cooling
warm.
down.
It's
You going
this
pumpkin?
is. God no.
Are you a pumpkin beer guy?
Oh my
No.
God, my brother-in-law
I do like
is,
some
and it's
Oktoberfest
disgusting.
beers, but
No.
I'm not like a just pumpkin ale guy.
Once I hit the fall to spring, it's Budweiser all day. All
Really?
night. Yeah, and then the seltzers kick in once it gets warmer out. And I like seltzers on the golf course.
More of a Bush guy myself.
Makes a lot of sense.
What a trade. Wow. Unbelievable.
Makes a lot of sense.
Bush has
Bush Heavy, is that what you're going to say?
Bush Heavy, Bush Light,
Bush Heavy.
all the Bush. Fine by me. Coming up next, Wade Miley
Amen,
might be
brother.
exactly what the doctor ordered for this Cardinals rotation. And no, don't get mad at me. We'll explain it next here on 101 ESPN.
underway, and 101 ESPN has you covered. BK and Ferrario are coming to you live from Blues training camp at the Centene Community Ice Center. Refreshed by Bud Light and E&B Granite. Bernie Federko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring.
BK, so we are potentially going to have Oskar Sundqvist join the show here in just a moment. So when we get him into the studio, we will certainly go ahead and call an audible. But right now, I do want to talk briefly, Alex, about Wade Miley, who we saw shut down the Cardinals this week. He is nobody's definition of an ace by any stretch of the imagination. He's 36 years old, and he's just merely a good pitcher. But he is exactly the kind of guy that I would like to see as the number 5 starter for the Cardinals going into next season. But with that being said, we have the opportunity right now to catch up with the one and only Oskar Sundqvist, who's stepping into the studio. And when you have the opportunity to have Sonny on the show, you do it anytime that you can. Oskar Sundqvist back in St. Louis, a St. Louis City SC super fan. It's good to have him back on the St. Louis Blues. Sonny, we appreciate you taking the time to hop on with us today, man. How you doing?
Thanks for having me, guys. Doing good. Finally catching my breath after that skate. But, other than that, it's good.
Well, worst timing ever to make you come in and do a hit on radio, right? Making you walk over here. Sonny, did you know that tweeting out a blue heart emoji was going to take an entire city by storm during the offseason?
No, I thought it was kind of. I thought I did pretty good. Then I started counting the teams after I posted it, and I was like, oh, maybe it's not that many teams that are blue. So I did not know it's gonna blow up that much, but yeah, I guess I got figured out pretty quickly.
What is your relationship like with St. Louis Blues fans? Because obviously on our side, we see the text line. We see the amount of love that comes your direction, the connection that you clearly have with this fan base. For you, what is that connection like?
It's been kind of from day one. City of St. Louis is so welcoming, and they open you with open arms, and they could take care of you, and they're always been nice. You go on the street and you say hi to people and all that stuff. It's just awesome, the people here. And, I got to learn that pretty quickly when I got here, and it's just been growing since then. So, like I've said many times before, it feels like a second home, and this is where I want to be. And I just absolutely love everything with the city.
I'll never forget, Sonny, talking with you that first season that you were acquired and came to St. Louis, and you went through camp, you went through preseason, and you made the team, and you were talking about just how you felt like you got acclimated, not just to the roster, but to the city. And you've played on other teams. Now you've been with Detroit, Minnesota. At the time you were with Pittsburgh. Does it change, I guess, the season for you when you feel so comfortable in a city and feel like you get so acclimated with a group?
Yeah, no, definitely it does. It's. I feel like you really need to, as a person and where you are, if you're not happy outside the rink, it's not going to work at the rink. You're not going to play your best on the ice and all that stuff. And I feel like a lot of guys that can be so much better probably have that problem that they don't feel good outside the rink, and that's why I give St. Louis a lot of credit, most of the city, for really taking care of their players and then really making them feel like welcoming them home. So that's one that St. Louis is absolutely on top at.
The other thing that helps with that, of course, is health and just being able to be on the ice and feeling like yourself. Where are you at right now health-wise, Sonny?
This is the best I've ever felt in a lot of years. Just getting a full-on summer with no rehab and really preparing for the season. I had a talk with Doug this morning too about how good this summer have gone and all that stuff, and I feel the best I ever had, and I'm just so excited to get this thing started and be healthy.
Who was happier when they found out that you were in St. Louis again, Craig Berube or Joe Vitale? Because I've never seen a man more emotionally torn when we found out that you were traded to Detroit, and I've never seen somebody as happy as he was when we found out that Oskar Sundqvist was coming back.
I tell you this, I don't know if this is going to give it away or not, but One of them called me, and the other one didn't. And the other one didn't even answer my text. So,
and I can promise that can't be who we all think it was. So
he's got 5 kids apparently. So it's a hard life for him.
We talked to him yesterday, and we were joking around with him about that. And I said, now to be fair to Joe, it's not as easy as you think in terms of 5 kids, and it's just like, oh hey, let me. He probably saw it the moment it was sent, and then like forgot 2 minutes later.
For sure.
5 kids will do that to you.
So, Sonny, earlier today we were talking with Kevin Hayes, and he said one of the things that he likes early on in his impression from Craig Berube is that you know exactly what he needs from you. He tells you exactly what he wants out of your role, and he makes it very clear. When you talk with Craig Berube, whether it was during the offseason or over the first couple of days of camp, what has he told you about what your role is going to be for this team, both on and off the ice?
You know, it's just getting a little bit older, and all that stuff is more showing the younger guys and getting everyone in the right mindset, and showing, especially with my style of play, on how kind of dragging people along, you know, getting back to Blues hockey and showing that. But like you said, you know, when Chief wants, he doesn't want perfection or anything. He wants you to work hard and try, and it's simple, and you know, it's I feel like I fit perfect in with him as a person and as a coach, and I'm just gonna keep doing what I did in 2019, and this time maybe help out the younger guys a little bit more with my more experience and stuff like that. But we got such a good team, and if we can all just move in the same direction, it's going to be a really fun season.
You are a vet now, Oskar, in the NHL. Does it seem to you that teams take the identity of their coach more than maybe what they did in the past? Because this Blues team does feel like it takes Berube's identity more times than not through a season.
Yeah, no, definitely. And you know, what I feel like just these first 2 days of camp too, you know, I feel like a lot of guys are very disappointed with how last season went. That they want kind of this revenge almost in this season, and you know, it's probably the highest tempo I've had in first 2 days of a training camp, and it's fun to see and be a part of, and you know, I feel like we're all backing up with the coaching staff right now, and we just need to keep going the same direction. You know, like I said, it's going to be a fun season if we're doing that.
There's a lot of competition for this team for fourth line minutes. You look at Toropchenko, Blais, Neighbors, some of the young guys as well, Dean, Alexandrov, and then Richie coming in on a PTO as well. What's that like? I know it's super early in camp, but what's that like to see so much competition for those fourth line roles?
You know, competition is always good because it makes you go that little extra mile, if you want to say that, and really do this little extra rep or whatever. And you know, it's always healthy. It's healthy competition, and you have to be on your toes every day. You know, you can be really good one day, and next day you might not be in the lineup. So I only see positive things with having that type of competition, and I think it's good for all of us in the whole locker room.
Was it fun for you to get a taste of the playoffs again last year? Obviously, I know when you were traded to Detroit, missed out on the playoffs, but being in Minnesota last season, a little bit more excitement towards the end of that year.
Yeah, no, definitely. Kind of didn't go how we planned it, but you know, a lot of fun. You know, just everything around it and all that stuff is so much fun. It's nothing compared to it, and you know, like you said, with the Detroit one, nothing sucks more than missing out on it.
Yeah.
No, you know, I feel like we have a really good chance this year, and then make something big here happen. And like I said, the guys are out for revenge from last season, and they're hungry. So I'm really looking forward to get this season started.
Awesome. Final hockey question that I have for you. Last time that you were here, Robert Thomas, Jordan Kyrou were both very young players. They were at the early portions of their careers. What, from the players that they were when you were last year to the players that they are today, what have you seen in terms of their development?
You know, just more mature, I would say. It's the biggest thing. You know, they're always been skilled players. They're always going to be skilled players. but just taking more responsibility both on and off the ice so far, and really maturing as persons or people. So excited to see both of them, and hopefully they can translate what they've been doing off the ice to on the ice. But they've been growing a lot, and I feel like almost like a parent. They grow up so fast. It feels like I knew Robbie when I was a little baby when I was 18 years old. But no, it's awesome to see them. They're both great guys, and like I said, they're grown-ups now.
Final one from me, Sonny. City SC, you have become a super fan here in St. Louis. What has it been like for you to see the success of that team starting from basically nothing to now clinching a playoff spot?
Yeah, it's awesome. Everything, getting into soccer here, and getting that stadium, and how the city's been rallying around it, and it's kind of something that we want to do. They don't have the best team on the paper. I think I saw a month ago or so that they're basically in the bottom of the paying like the players. But they're all moving on the same page. They're all working together, and that's that can make a lot. You don't have to have the highest paid players in the league. They're a great example of that. Of just getting the group together and working together, and good things gonna happen. So hopefully they finish the season strong here. And I can't wait to see how playoff is in soccer.
Have you tried to convince them to let you be that flag guy in the St. Louis area during the first playoff game?
No, we'll see. Those flags are heavy, so credit to those
and doing
guys.
it the entire game.
Yeah. No, that's credit to them. My arms and shoulders would be sore after a whole night of that. But no, it's a lot of fun. Just going to those games are a lot of fun.
That atmosphere seems like it draws you in so fast and makes you want to come back.
Oh yeah, definitely. I will gonna keep saying this, and I've said it a lot of times. I think the stadium is too small. I think it should be bigger, but it's my opinion. But no, it's so much fun going to those games.
He's Oskar Sundqvist. It's great to have him back here in St. Louis with the St. Louis Blues. Sonny, it's great to catch up with you. Hopefully we'll be able to do a few more of these throughout the season. Best of luck throughout training camp, and we'll see you again soon, man.
Thanks for having me, guys.
You got it. That's Oskar Sundqvist, Blues forward, back in the fold with the St. Louis Blues. Appreciate him hopping over to catch up with us as the Blues. Day 2 of training camp has come to a close here today at the Centene Community Ice Center. Coming up next, Mizzou's got some momentum. They can't let go of that, and we'll predict the Monday morning college football headlines here on 101 ESPN.
exclusive Blues training camp coverage on 101 ESPN. BK and Ferrario are live at Blues training camp at the Centene Community Ice Center. Refreshed by Bud Light and E&B Granite. Bernie Federko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring.
If you missed it, we were able to catch up with Blues forwards Kevin Hayes and Oskar Sundqvist earlier today. Those are available for you after the show over at 101ESPN.com or on the free 101 ESPN app. It's all presented by
Dobbs Tire and Auto Center.
You guys can also always rewatch the show after it's completed over on YouTube, which we are back up live on YouTube at 101 ESPN STL. All right, let's talk a little bit of college football because this is a great college football week. T-Bone, you mentioned the stat earlier in the week. I think it's the most top 25 matchups this early in the season since, if I'm not mistaken, 2006. So this is one of the best slates you could possibly ask for. I mean, you look up and down the board. You got Colorado against Oregon, UCLA versus Utah, Ole Miss versus Bama, Oregon State versus Wazoo, Ohio State versus Notre Dame, and Iowa taking on Penn State. And that is not to include either of the two local games as well. FAU against Illinois.
Yeah, best football game of the weekend.
Illinois better cover in that one. Get yourself back on the right side of things. And Missouri taking on the Memphis Tigers. I am not confident that Missouri is going to cover the spread in that one.
What a terrible fan you are.
I do like them to win outright. Let's start with that one, Alex. This is a game where Missouri, it's another pass-fail test for me. I don't care what the final score is. I really don't. If you win 3-2 or 50-45, go out there and just find a way to get a victory against the Memphis Tigers. Because right now, there is real momentum with the Missouri football program. You cannot allow that to slip away before you get into the heart of the SEC slate. So this is another one of those pass-fail tests for me.
If they lose this one, we're talking about a team that's probably going to be another 7-win team because this is how you deflate your season.
Yep.
You come off of such an ultimate high. You're in St. Louis against with a new fan base, taking on this team. You lay an egg, you're back to being a team that's probably going to win 3, maybe 4 SEC games. Whereas if you win this one, I'm still on my optimistic island here. We're talking about a 9-win team. And this is where you win this one, you go into SEC play feeling like you're untouchable, especially for watching how Georgia's played, Alabama's played, the contest that you're going to have when you take on Florida and Tennessee. Like, you feel untouchable when you win this one. And if you lose, we're talking about a team that might fall apart towards the end.
Yeah, I think with that being said, you're looking at a team that if you can take care of business. Now, look, if they find a way to just kind of fight through this one and win the close game, they're not going to be ranked. But they should be ranked if they win this weekend and they take care of business because there's going to be multiple top 25 teams that are going to lose, some that are near the back end of the top 25, looking at you, Iowa. And they stink. Okay. But you're going to be a team that can go into SEC play potentially in the top 25. I mean, they were, 27th technically if you look at the AP top 25 and how they received votes. So, yeah, they take care of business. You're going in rank. You're feeling good against conference play, and you get a cupcake in conference play to open things up with Vanderbilt, and you build all that momentum to the showdown with the LSU Tigers. And that's the best thing that can happen for them. I think you're right. I think if they somehow lose this game, then it's deflating. You are talking about a team that all of a sudden looks at someone and go, mate, that Kansas State game, that wasn't us. That was more of a one-off bias where we just played really well for one game.
So that's one game that we're going to watch this weekend. Our eyes, I would assume, are going to be also pointed at some of these other big-time top 25 matchups. So let's go through, predict the headlines for Monday morning, all right? What is going to be the headline coming off of these big college football games over the weekend? Let's start with Colorado versus Oregon. This is the headliner. If you're looking at any of the ratings coming off of the last few weeks, man, Colorado versus Colorado State was one of the most watched college football games of the last decade on ESPN. Colorado versus bleeping Colorado State. Nobody nationally cares about Colorado State. Guys, I had a doctor's appointment with our baby boy's doctor earlier today. You know what he asked me about? He knows I'm a sports guy. The only thing he asked me about, it wasn't the Cardinals, it wasn't the Blues. It was Colorado and Deion Sanders. That is what he's doing. He has become a brand out at CU. And my headline coming off of this one is very simple. Not so buff. Buffaloes fall flat in Oregon.
That's good. I like that.
I think this is going to be the first game where we look at them and say, the talent deficit is very much still there, and it is something that they are going to struggle to overcome. No Travis Hunter in this one. They're going up against a very good Oregon football team. This does not mean that I think Colorado stinks. I don't. I still think they lose this one like 42-20, something like that. I think Oregon wins, unfortunately, going away.
You want to know what my headline is with this one?
Please.
The Buffaloes roam in Oregon.
Ooh.
You know, give me a home where the Buffaloes roam. They're going to roam in Oregon. Or Oregon.
Close enough. You got it.
Close enough with this one. I get that they're playing without Travis Hunter, who is a game changer for them, but they still, like, Sanders at the quarterback position is still a game changer for them. And I think they've still got the elite weapons. Defensively, I'm not expecting them to be very great because of not having Hunter. But I also think this is going to be a sling show in terms of everybody's throwing the ball deep. And I think Colorado prevails. And I think people are talking more about Colorado being the real deal after this game rather than acting like that they're just some show in the first couple of weeks.
Yeah, my headline is Deion's not ducking around because the Buffaloes take down the Oregon Ducks.
We are good at these.
I could see where Colorado – I think last week was one of those, and PK said this, I think they read too much of their own headlines, and they kind of were looking ahead. It felt like a trap game against Colorado State. I think this week Deion's at least proven enough so far to where he can get this team riled up, get the energy back into that team, and they can go into Oregon and potentially pull off an upset. I have not been as impressed with Oregon early on this season as I have been with Colorado. So I think they've got a shot. It is going to be very difficult without Hunter. If they had a Hunter, I would be 100% in on an upset. It's going to be tougher. I think they could pull it off, so I'm going Deion is not ducking around.
So I really like that one, first of all. I will give you one more. Utah versus UCLA. I don't know if you guys have a headline for this one. It's okay if you do not. Utah rising up the ranks as Cam Rising stars in his return for the Utah Utes. I think Utah picks up a win this weekend against UCLA. I like Cam Rising to be the star of this one so long as he is indeed able to return. There's been some it's gone back and forth on whether or not he is for sure going to play, but Cam Rising is their star quarterback. He has been out so far this season. I think he'll be able to be back in this one.
The Utes kick UCLA's boots. That's my headline.
Canadian headline?
Yeah, you're welcome. It's butts, but it's boots.
I like it.
Thanks. And it rhymes with Utes. That's where I was going. The other one was the Utes. No, I'm going to stick with the first one I have.
The Utes are on fire. We can do that one, too.
Rich what?
What's your next headline coming off of this weekend?
That one for me, UCLA, I'm going to say UCLA is back, and it's all in bold letters. I think they're pulling off the Utes.
Boo.
Can I get? I know I didn't have a great one for that one. I couldn't come up with anything clever. I didn't know the Utes
root the Bruins.
Can I give you mine for Ole Miss and Alabama?
Sure.
Ole Alabama is done. That's my headline. Ole Miss takes down Alabama. The Nick Saban era is officially over in Alabama.
Spicy.
Rebels with a cause.
Ooh, that is good.
One.
I like that. Man, I wish I could have came up with that.
You all are welcome for that one.
Jackson is darting up the Heisman candidacy rankings.
Felt like a reach.
Who are we talking about?
Jackson Dart. He's their starting quarterback for Ole Miss.
Too deep into the waters, man. You can't do that.
That's fair. That's fair.
It's too deep into
not
the weeds.
so ooey. Uiagalelei leads Oregon State to a big victory over the Washington State Cougars.
I don't have a good one on this one. Sorry. I don't have any good with this one.
Do you have an Ohio State headline for Notre Dame?
I couldn't really come up with one for the Ohio State Notre Dame. I was trying to think because I think Notre Dame wins
the
the
luck
football.
of the Irish.
I know, and I didn't want to go like the classic. Oh, look at the luck of the Irish. So I don't really have a good one for that one. I do think Notre Dame wins. I think it's probably just a simple Notre Dame is a serious college football playoff threat, and I think that might be what the headline is coming after that one. And they play Duke going up next week, so they could have 2 back-to-back top 25 wins.
Yeah, I have no creative one with that one. I used all my creative juices in the first 3, but I do think that the headline on that one is Notre Dame's the real deal. Because Notre Dame wins that one. Notre Dame is a top 4, top 5 team in college football. And I'm going to start backing what I believed before the season began, saying that they could make a playoff run, a college football playoff run.
And I'm going the opposite side of this one. I actually think that Ohio State ends up winning this game, and I think the headline will be, this is not creative either. I couldn't find anything that would be a play on words on this.
Just have a better name than Buckeyes, you know? Like, come on.
Or the Irish.
The Irish are good. I think you could play off it.
I was trying to
don't want to go off the same thing.
I was trying to do something off of
The Irish
Ryan Day.
pick the Buckeyes 4-leaf clover.
It's not Ohio State's day as Ohio State drops to Notre Dame.
Okay, I could see that.
Stupid.
My headline coming off of this one, Marvin Harrison Jr. is an established top 5 pick and could be fighting for a top 2 pick going into next year's draft. I think the headline coming off of this is that Marvin Harrison Jr. is the best wide receiver prospect not named Jamar Chase that we've seen in the last decade. I think he's right up there with anybody else that you want to talk about. Julio Jones, Calvin Johnson, all these dudes. He doesn't have the size of some of those guys, but man, in terms of his effectiveness on the football field, he can do everything. He can be for your team what Justin Jefferson is for the Minnesota Vikings.
Is it weird that I'm rooting for the Colts to suck this year because I want Marvin Harrison Jr. to be their first-round pick? Like, I obviously with his dad's background with the Colts, but I really want a Richardson, Harrison Jr. 1-2 punch moving forward with that Colts team. That'd be fun. I might become a Colts fan if that happens.
You don't want to do that.
Why not, man? Better than the Chiefs.
No kidding. But, I mean, I wouldn't want to be a Colts fan.
Why? Why not, man? They got the better quarterback out of all the other rookies.
You know, Colts fans are constantly heartbroken.
Not when you have the Richardson-Harrison duo.
Yeah, that's going to change things for him.
Take that, son.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line.
You got it.
Somebody said my new favorite segment. BK somehow still manages to make even puns sound smug.
I didn't think your pun sounded smug there, buddy.
Thanks, man.
No, I'm not going to fist pump you.
Alex is in a good mood today. You know how I can tell? He's standing up during the show. he's all.
That's because I get to go out to Blues and Brews tonight, and BK takes all the attention, so I get to enjoy myself.
You got to talk with Sonny today and Kevin
I got
Hayes.
Sonny today, man.
That was great. That was a good surprise.
He's my. We're hoping that we get a weekly hit with Blues players. He's my hope. I would love to have it. It's a sunny week.
You're not going to make me try to convince you otherwise.
Sesame Street.
I would be happy to do it.
Sunny days. Day away. I don't watch Sesame Street as much anymore. Did you watch that when you were growing up?
No, I was more of an Arthur guy.
It's a Blues Clues guy.
That makes you watched a show about an aardvark. That makes so much freaking sense. Yeah, like my goodness, man.
I mean,
did you like Baby Shark noise or the song too?
I mean, I was like 18 when that came out, so probably not.
I mean, hey, he just admitted yesterday to watching, what was the show?
Bluey.
Dude,
I watched it this morning.
Admit that.
I was up at 6 a.m. and I watched an hour of that while I was getting the girls' breakfast ready.
What was your go-to, like, Nickelodeon, Disney Channel, like, early preteen era show?
Well, Nickelodeon.
Like Rocket Power,
I was never
Wild
Disney Channel.
Thornberries.
I was always Nickelodeon. Rocco's Modern Life was the go-to for me.
Sure.
Ren and Stimpy. And then all that and Are You Afraid of the Dark? Those are like my 4 go-tos with Nickelodeon. Oh, that was
Double Dare
incredible.
2000.
Watched Double Dare. Tried to get on Double Dare. Didn't work.
The Amanda Show.
Yeah, watch the Amanda. Seriously, my wife was the Disney Channel person, which makes sense. She loves Disney like your wife does. I was never Disney, all Nickelodeon.
What was it? Smart House?
Smart Guy.
Smart Guy. Smart Guy was one of them.
The brother in that was the singer in B2K.
Really?
You know, the bump, bump, bump song? Love me some bump, bump, bump.
I don't think I knew that,
Baby,
actually.
turn around and let me see that sexy body go bump, bump, bump.
Did you watch Rugrats?
Watch Rugrats. Hey, Arnold. Another really good one.
Yeah, that was a really good one. That was right up there.
Nickelodeon was live. T-Bone, how many of you're looking at me like you've just seen a ghost.
Yeah,
Somebody mentioned Jimmy Neutron was one of theirs.
I never liked Jimmy Neutron.
No, the only thing that I can think of now is Rockio. Anytime that I hear about Jimmy Neutron.
Well, I can't watch Wreck-It Ralph at home without thinking of Rockio smashing pencils in the
Were you
studio.
a big Ed, and Eddie guy? I feel like you would have been.
It was
an
Cartoon
Ed,
Network,
Eddie guy.
because I was a big Scooby-Doo guy. Like, Scooby-Doo was my favorite cartoon growing up.
Keenan and Kel was a good one.
So far. Scooby-Doo, the only one
Dexter's Laboratory?
I didn't like that one that
No,
much.
really?
I
I'm
liked
surprised by that.
Johnny Bravo. Johnny Bravo was a good one. Little bit of the Powerpuff Girls. Enjoyed that too.
Recess was an
the goat.
all-timer.
Recess was the GOAT.
What was your go-to, T-Bone?
His go-to was, I don't even remember.
When I was in that kind of pre-teen age, it was Good Luck Charlie was on Disney. I remember that.
I couldn't even tell you what that is.
Oh, really? That was great. Wizards of Waverly Place was big when I was growing up, too.
No.
I remember that one. I can't think what else. I mean, those were the 2 big ones that I can recall from Disney. What was that guy? Big 10, I want to say was his name. Had like a watch and would turn into like aliens. I watched that on Cartoon Network a lot.
Dude.
Thank you. It was big.
Jordan just came through for you there.
Ben 10.
Ben 10.
Not Big 10. That makes more sense.
Big 10 would be football.
Yeah.
Man.
Well, I did watch some of that, too.
No, seriously, not one of the things you just named I've ever heard
Well, now
of.
you know how I feel. And this happens to me all the time.
Yeah, but ours are like historic. Yours are like boring.
No.
You should go back and look at ours.
No. You know,
Doug is a good one.
Doug was a good one. I dressed up as Quail Man for
Did
Halloween
you?
one year. Yep, wore the underwear on the outside, had the towel as the.
I was a big Captain Underpants guy. Remember the old
Comic books?
Scholastic
I remember those.
book fair?
Dude, I used to drop way too much money at Scholastic Book Fair.
Oh,
My mom
sure.
would be like, "Why did you?" I didn't read, so she was like, "Why are you dropping all of this money on this stuff?" It's playing video games. She's like, "Why are you bringing home 15
Choose
books?"
Your Own Adventure and Captain Underpants. Those were the two book
Goosebumps
series
were
that you
mine.
had. Oh, for sure.
Jeez, they're bringing a new Goosebumps series to Disney Plus.
not interested.
Yes, please.
Coming up next, one's got to go here on 101 ESPN. Hey, it's BK. So you had a solid retirement dream. You sell your home in a few years, you bank that equity, you downsize, and you travel all across the globe, but then inflation hit. And it's got you wondering if all that hard-earned equity is still going to be there. Well, what if you could recession-proof your equity right now? Guys, you can do that with TrueHold. They'll buy your home for its best current value before any kind of a recession can erode it, and you get to bank all the cash now while you continue living in your home for as long as you'd like. Plus, TrueHold will cover all the property taxes, the insurance, repairs, and maintenance too. And since they pay your home's current value in cash, that money is yours to do whatever you'd like with. So don't wait for inflation or rising interest rates to erode your home's value. Visit Truehold.com, and you'll discover how much they'll buy your home for today based on its best current value and not what's coming. Call 1-855-300-9993 or visit them at Truehold.com to find out more about the smarter and faster way to cash out on your home's full value without having to move. That's 1-855-300-9993 or visit Truehold.com.
I'm Jordan Deacon. The SportsCenter update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. The St. Louis Cardinals fell to the Milwaukee Brewers yesterday 6-0 in the final game of the series. The Cardinals won one out of that 4-game series and are in San Diego tonight facing off against the Padres. Dakota Hudson is on the mound for the Cards, and first pitch is at 8:40. St. Louis City SC continues towards the postseason as they take on Minnesota United FC tomorrow night at 7:30. Minnesota sits at 10th in the Western Conference with 37 points, while City is in first, 13 points ahead of them. And in college football tomorrow, Mizzou is taking on Memphis at 6:30, and Illinois will be playing Florida Atlantic at 2:30. I'm Jordan Deacon. That SportsCenter update was driven by Johnny Londoff. Find new roads and shop 24/7 at londoff.com and londoffautoplex.com. Are you kidding me?
More Blues talk more often. BK and Ferrario are broadcasting live from Blues training camp at the Centene Community Ice Center. Refreshed by Bud Light and E&B Granite. Bernie Federko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring. This is BK and Ferrario. Time now for One's Gotta Go. We offer up the talking points, and you get to pick which one's gotta go on 101 ESPN.
Count that big pen.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for One's Gotta Go. One's Gotta Go Kids Show Network Edition, guys.
Tanner's not allowed to answer this.
Nickelodeon, Disney, Cartoon Network, or Boomerang?
I don't even know what Boomerang is.
Are you familiar with Boomerang?
Isn't that a television, station app?
I genuinely don't know.
George, Grant, either of you know what Boomerang is?
Are we Boomerang?
Yeah, I have no idea. I've never heard of that.
Thank God.
Okay, good. So this is like a thing.
Let's get rid of that one. Let's set it to the side for a second. Nickelodeon, Disney, or Cartoon Network? Which one's got to go?
Because of my childhood, I would get rid of Disney. I'm getting rid of the Disney Channel. Yeah, I just, none of the shows on Disney Channel I watched growing up. It was all Nickelodeon, or it's weird though, because I watched Disney movies, but it was all Nickelodeon shows and Cartoon Network shows. From 5 o'clock until about 10 o'clock at night, I was watching Cartoon Network and Nickelodeon, and then Whose Line Is It Anyway came on ABC Family, and I'd watch that.
Yeah, see, I would get rid of Nickelodeon. I didn't watch nothing on Nickelodeon. I watched Disney. I watched Cartoon Network. Yeah, everything. I know the shows that were on Nickelodeon. You had what was it? I Heart Carly.
Literally just no. That's not no.
Well, that was one that was there when I was growing up. You old guys, things were a little different.
I also watched a lot of South Park.
And I didn't watch SpongeBob. That's on Nickelodeon as well. So I didn't watch anything on Nickelodeon. So I'd say Nickelodeon's got to go for me.
I would go Cartoon Network.
Really?
I didn't really watch much Cartoon Network.
Dude, Cartoon Network had such a great lineup in the evenings on Friday nights.
Dexter's Laboratory, Johnny Bravo, Ed, Ed, and Eddie.
Courage the Cowardly Dog. That was another really good one.
I didn't really watch any of these, to be totally honest with you guys.
Oh, yeah. They had the most incredible lineup.
Ben 10 is apparently on Cartoon Network.
Yeah.
Your
Don't
boy.
know what the hell that is.
Never heard of that before in my life.
I used to have a little watch where I would pretend to
Pinky and the Brain was another one on Nickelodeon.
Yeah, see, I didn't...
Animaniacs, watched that one. Looney Tunes, that was Cartoon Network. See, these are the GOATs. Disney didn't really have this when I was growing up.
All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. One's got to go ticket edition. You get to get rid of one of these. Game 7 of the World Series, Game 7 of the Stanley Cup, a Sunday ticket to the Masters. World Series, Stanley Cup, or the Masters.
It's easy for me.
Yeah, it's easy for me too. Mine would be the Masters.
Same.
Yeah, I can experience the Masters from home. I can experience the World Series of the Stanley Cup final at home. That atmosphere, now that I've lived it with a Game 7 of a Cup, there's nothing close to compare of either of those two.
Yeah, I just don't think the environment's the same as a Game 7 World Series.
It's intense, though, at the Masters.
It is intense, but it's not as, rowdy. Golf is more kind of laid back, quiet. There are some courses that get that way. I think it is starting to become more of a rowdy sport where you get younger people in watching it. But, I think World Series Game 7, that place could be going crazy at any moment. Golf, it's just
The Masters, you've got to have a guy you're rooting for who's competing for the win. You've got to have the guy that you like competing for the green jacket. Otherwise, I don't think it matters because you're going to see your guy. You're not really going to unless it's a really competitive battle at the end, then that's a little bit more exciting.
The other thing is there's not a lot of Game 7s in the Stanley Cup or the World Series.
You're right.
The Masters comes around every year.
Yep.
Now, if you told me, you guaranteed me, hey, you're going to see something special. You're going to see like a playoff or something like that. Like, okay, cool. I could probably convince myself that that is something that lives up to the expectations of these other two. But it is so rare, exceedingly rare, that you see a Game 7. And the potential of seeing a good Game 7 where one of those teams leaves feeling like they had a real opportunity just slip out of their hands. Yeah, I got to go with the Game 7s. I'm going to get rid of the Masters as well. Although that is something that is legitimately on my bucket list. I would love to go to the Masters. If I had to choose one of these three, that would be the one that
like that PGA Championship when Woods won it here in St. Louis.
Incredible.
That was invigorating to be there for it. But I'm still going to go to a World Series or a Stanley Cup every day of the week over that.
That Sunday, watching that, it was one of the greatest sporting experiences.
And watching it was exciting for you, and there's the difference.
But no, I was there.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But what I mean followed around Tiger the entire day, and it was one of the greatest sporting experiences ever. But I would need to know that Tiger is competing at the Masters down the stretch.
Got to be the guy
for that to be able to live up. All right, one's got to go retread quarterback edition. Russell Wilson, Derek Carr, Jimmy G, Baker Mayfield. Which one's got to go? Russ, Carr, Jimmy G, Baker. I think this was easy. I'm getting rid of Baker.
Oh, really? I was going to say Jimmy G.
I was going to say Jimmy G, too. Are we talking like whole career, or are we talking just NFL?
Right now.
Oh, right now. Yeah, I would get rid of Jimmy G. Like, Baker's at least competing. Jimmy G looks washed up.
Yeah. That's kind of where I am. I look at the Tampa Bay Bucks, and I think they're a fraudulent 2-0 team. But Baker's looked pretty good with them. And he looked good at times with the Rams last year down the stretch. I mean, he basically showed up, didn't know the playbook, and won a football game for the LA Rams. And I think when he is healthy, at times he looks better than Jimmy Garoppolo. Jimmy Garoppolo, there's not a lot there.
Jimmy G just doesn't look interested in football anymore.
Yeah.
Feel bad for the guy.
I think Jimmy G gets a little underrated. I think he gets a bad rap.
I mean, when you take a porn star out on a date, like you would imagine, your thoughts are elsewhere, right?
Touche, sir. Coming up
Baker's
next,
not doing that.
We're hitting the BK and Ferrario Rewind and closing up shop for the end of the week here on 101 ESPN.
All Blues coverage is right here on 101 ESPN. BK and Ferrario are broadcasting live from the Centene Community Ice Center for Blues training camp. Refreshed by Bud Light and E&B Granite. Bernie Federko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring. Let's run it back with a daily rewind on BK and Ferrario.
Brought to you by Stewart's American Mortgage. Google the Bagel Loan, featuring 0 fees and 0 closing costs.
Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Hey, it's been a pleasure to be with you guys out here live from the E&B Granite Studios at the Centene Community Ice Center over the last few days. If you missed any of our conversations with Blues players, any of our Blues content previewing the upcoming season as they are kicking off training camp out here this week, be sure to check it out on the podcast page after the show today. Alex and T-Bone will take you guys on Monday. I'm going to be out. It is my baby boy's final day at home with my wife. It is her final day of maternity leave. He's going to start daycare on Tuesday, so I'm going to take Monday off. I'll be back with you guys, though, on Tuesday. Alex, going into the weekend, we did our football pick'em challenge earlier today. Your 3 picks, Cowboys, Chargers, and Seahawks with the spread. T-Bone has the Ravens, Notre Dame, and Texas, and I've got the Patriots, Oregon State, and Tennessee Titans. T-Bone's got the Ravens minus the 8 points. Their injury report was just released.
Also minus the 8 players.
I mean, it would be easier for me to read to you the players that are available for the Ravens on Sunday than the players that aren't.
Yikes, T-Bone. Yikes.
It's not going great for week 3
Are
here.
you regretting that decision?
No, because, I mean, like, they're going up against Gardner Minshew.
Odell Beckham, Justice Hill, Marlon Humphrey, Ronnie Stanley, Tyler Linderbaum, Odafe Owe, and Marcus Williams are all unavailable for the Ravens going into Sunday's game. And T-Bone has them winning by at least 9 points.
That's 2 of their best offensive linemen, and the defense of the Colts is going up against the Ravens offense.
And 2 of their best secondary players as well, and their single best edge rusher. So, yeah, I'm sure everything's going to be totally fine.
T-Bone, you miss out on a point.
No. I believe in Baltimore coming through this adversity and beating a Anthony Richardson-less Colts team.
I think we need to start making our picks at 145 on the rewind because the injury list is starting to ruin my life sometimes.
So here's the question for you guys as we get out of here. We'll hand things over to the fast lane here in just a moment. What do you guys think you're leading with on Monday morning? When you come in and you're figuring out what the plan is for the show, what do you think the single biggest story is coming out of the weekend for St. Louis?
I got this. The Missouri Tigers fall to Memphis at the Dome, leading to a potential disappointing year.
Blues hockey.
You do have Blues hockey tomorrow here on 101 ESPN.
Damn right, 11 hours of it. I'm starting at 1 o'clock, and I'm not stopping until 11 o'clock. Grant Francis is going to be on the 1s and 2s.
It's good to have you back on the air, man.
Thanks, man. It's appreciated.
In that capacity.
Thanks, I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to it. I do think, depending on the lineups that they're going to play both nights, which I'm imagining you're going to probably see, because they scrimmaged against each other today, groups B and C in both of these games, I will be curious to see because we might be seeing Bolduc, Dean, Ritchie, Ratcliffe, all these guys that are competing for spots.
You guys aren't leading Monday with Blues.
Oh, we're so leading Blues hockey on Monday.
I'm producing the show.
We are producing the show, Blues hockey, on Monday.
No.
I think you guys will be leading with Missouri, but I think you'll be leading with Missouri getting a win, starting the season 4-0 for the first time since 2013. And then the secondary topic, you guys will get into the greater college football landscape coming off of what is going to be arguably the best college football weekend that we have seen in 15 years.
Blues hockey.
Was it just me or did that feel like, BK, though I'm not here, here's how the show should go?
Yeah, send me your thoughts and watch us use them on Monday.
I will do absolutely none of that. For Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. We'll see you guys tonight. We're going to be out at Blues and Brews. Looking forward to that. Baby Luke is going to be joining me. Alex will be along for the ride. T-Bone is ditching out, but we'll be having a good time with you guys out there. We'll see you then. The Fast Lane is coming up next.